of Education was ordered by the Limpopo High Court to replace all pit toilets at public schools in the province. The deadline was then set for April 2023, which was later shifted to the 1st of April 2024. Limpopo Education spokesperson is Mike Maringa.
As it stands now, we are talking about 19 schools that are yet to receive proper sanitation. But I must also indicate that in the 19 schools, those pit latrines have been demolished. We have given them what we call chemical toilets while we are in the final stages of constructing proper sanitation for them. So it cannot be correct that we are not willing to assist. It is a directive of the court. We need to make sure that each and every learner has decent sanitation at school.
And finally, the European Union has condemned what it described as a brutal crackdown on peaceful protest in Georgia. It followed a day of stepped-up pro-democracy protest in the Black Sea country and a series of arrests. The BBC's Charles Haviland has the details.
The EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said the actions of Georgia's government, led by the strongly nationalist Georgian Dream Party, fell short of all expectations of an EU candidate country. A journalist in the capital, Tbilisi, reported a new round of what she called arbitrary and violent arrests in the small hours of Monday. 2 protesters were reportedly beaten and taken to hospital with concussion and fractures. Earlier, 2 opposition leaders were detained. There have been nightly demonstrations since November, after Georgian Dream said it had won elections and suspended EU accession talks.
The top story this hour, the Economic Freedom Fighters has called for the closure of the Rwandan embassy in South Africa, saying that there is no need to continue diplomatic relations with a country that undermines its sovereignty. Headlines at 3:30 for SAFM News. I'm Kulufelo Defo.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Nabi reassures Amakhosi fans MI Cape Town claimed new record at home, and McIlroy wins PGA Pebble Beach title. More details at 3:30.
V up your 2025 with Vodacom Business and Galaxy AI. Save up to 20,000 Rand with trade-in when you pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra 256 gig on a Red Business 1.5 gig plan for just 1,539 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal with the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM for 69 Rand extra per month. Available in-store and online. Further together. Vodacom Business.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Action is getting tough.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
I think it's going to be a case of where were you? I think it's going to be a case of where were you? Where were you on the day when Donald Trump said something and then backed it up with a tweet about our country? Where were you on that day? And that really has got to be central to this show. I think it's been well documented since this morning. He said lots of things and has been supporting tweets from Elon Musk as well, just so that you can reflect on all of that. My name's Ashraf Garda. This is the National Pulse. The pulse rate's certainly moving in terms of what Trump said and how do we respond to Donald Trump in more ways than the other. Not just you and I, the different political parties, government, the African National Congress, and others too, other interest groups. And we'll talk about that. Lots more to come too, right? So let's talk about that first up. We have Crispin Piri, who's the spokesperson for the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. Crispin, good chatting to you. Thanks for connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Thank you for having me, Ashraf, and good afternoon to our listeners on the Pulse.
Absolutely. The Pulse is racing, right? I'm sure it is. Like, how did you guys respond, firstly, just to that news that Donald Trump is saying things about your country?
Yeah, well, we have responded. You just seen the minister has said that we trust that President Trump's advisors will look at the South African laws and really inform themselves around how we reach the positions that we reach. And we believe as a constitutional country, we do things in the interest of our people, but also in the interest of what is within the bounds of our constitution.
Of course,
so
clearly Trump doesn't
really how we look at it.
Clearly, they actually believe you at this point in time. Otherwise, they would not have said what Trump said. But let's do this, right? Let me go back to where it all started. So this morning at about 6 o'clock, 5:45, I saw those tweets and I shared that, and immediately a few people messaged me to say they must be fake tweets. He would never say things like that, but he did. This is what he said.
Mr. President, so on Truth Social, you said that you were going to cut aid from South Africa. Will you plan to cut aid across other African nations, and why South Africa?
No, it's only South Africa. Terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things, horrible things. So that's under investigation right now. We'll make a determination. And until such time as we find out what South Africa is doing, they're taking away land, they're confiscating land, and actually they're doing things that are perhaps far worse than that.
So that's what he said. The leadership's doing terrible things, and then we'll investigate it, and they're doing far worse things than that, and then we'll see what happens. That essence. So, as per Crispin Peary, here's the response first from the Minister of International Relations from Durko.
Has noted the comments of President Trump of the U.S. We want to state that we are a constitutional democracy, and the expropriation law that has been referenced to is not an exception. Many parts of the world do have expropriation laws that are used in the public interest and for public purpose. In the U.S. it's called the eminent domain. In the U.K. it's under various laws which the government uses from time to time in the national interest and in the public interest. And this is what this law is about, to transform on a balance, on a just and equitable basis. And we look forward to engagement with our U.S. counterparts on deepening the understanding of this law, and also on various bilateral issues of mutual interest between the two countries.
Okay, let's get back then to Crispin Peary. So, I mean, I've certainly heard what Minister Lamola has said, right? But did Trump's response catch, when I say you, catch your department by surprise?
Look, we would want to ensure that often if there's a misunderstanding about a particular policy position, we use the diplomatic channels to address such concerns. But we do understand that this is how things are now. I think some presidents would prefer to engage openly through media platforms, but we will continue, as the Minister has said in that clip. We will be engaging the minister's counterpart. Minister will be engaging with Secretary Rubio at a determined time to deepen how we can understand each other's frameworks, line of thinking, but do it through the diplomatic channels so that it's done in a manner that is diplomatically acceptable, other countries would do.
Point well made, but let me go back to my original point. What I'm saying, we aren't talking about Donald Trump, I understand that, but did he catch your department by surprise with the level of outbursts that he said in person and then followed up with a tweet?
Honestly, it's not surprising. That's the manner in which this administration engages. We've seen a number of public engagements, very direct, about numerous countries of the world. So it's not surprising that South Africa would also then be engaged in that manner. So we take it lockstep and barrel, and this is how this administration engages.
Okay, so what do you do next now? I mean, besides Minister Lamola saying a few things on air that we know, I would think the first prize would be you have to now open up channels of communication. Has that happened already?
Yes, the channels of communication have been open. You would have seen President Ramaphosa right when President Trump was still president-elect. There was an engagement between the two. We too, through the diplomatic channels, are reaching out to our counterparts to have an engagement with Secretary Rubio now that he's been confirmed as secretary. So the diplomatic channels are open. open. The engagements are underway. I think it's just a matter of getting into some substantive issues between ourselves, and we trust that will happen in due course.
And I take it, I know it's early morning in the USA, so, it depends where they are. If it's California, it's probably like 5 o'clock. Otherwise, it could be like maybe 8, 9 o'clock in New York or something like that. It's still early days, right? But having said that, I mean, I would like to think that you'd want to have some, if nothing else, like a Zoom or a team session like ASAP. This can't be dragged on, can it?
Look, what's important as well, and this is what we've moved to also address, is that this is blatant misinformation that we are dealing with here, right? And it has reached a very important office in the US. So the important thing is for us to stress, and we've seen even publications, for example, like the New York Times, stating that this is based on misinformation, basically, if you like, quite frankly, fake news of land seizures and so on. And it's important for us to address that as well in the media, to say, when we engage about South Africa's policies, whatever actor it is, a non-state actor or state actors, we need to do so with the precision that is required. And, the Expropriation Act in its totality is not a land seizure law. But because some actors, like the likes of AfriForum in South Africa, have chosen to misrepresent South Africa's policies to a very specific sect of people in the US, what people may frame as a right-wing community, we are now sort of reaping the fruits of that. And I think that's something we need to nip in the bud and, call on people like AfriForum to really think more carefully about what they say in the public domain and how they say it. Because as you can see, the consequences of it are far-reaching. So that's an important thing that we'd want to address. But through the diplomatic channels, we stand ready to engage our colleagues on this misinformation that has been presented and has gone quite far and wide. And we are capable of really explaining how our policies work. So there's no such thing as a land seizure in South Africa. Even under the new Expropriation Act, you will not wake up with a group of people outside your house, Ashraf, saying, "Move out, it's our turn to live in your house." The law actually doesn't allow for that.
But I mean, two things coming out of that. We are dealing with Donald Trump here, and Donald Trump says, whether you and I agree with him or not, in effect, he does it, right? He changes the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of USA or Gulf of America like overnight. He's pronounced on a whole range of other issues overnight. His effective change in Canada because he can do so, right, in terms of tariffs, right? The danger here that we're having is, as I talk to you, is whether it's misinformation or not, or manufactured information. Trump clearly, is no idiot. He didn't just respond on the spur of the moment. He knew what he wanted to say. And the danger is that he's going to carry through and follow through on that. And interestingly enough, he's getting support from a person called Elon Musk, rather. I could say Elon Trump. It's a wonderful Freudian slip, I think, because they appear to be speaking in sync. And Elon Musk clearly drives another audience through the X platform.
Look, I think if you really want to take President Trump's words verbatim, it is an important element. He says we have our own investigation, which means in that they are open to engagement and they are open to understanding exactly what is this issue that is being presented to them. And that's where the diplomatic engagement becomes very important. And so it suggests that President Trump is not just acting on the basis of the misinformation that's before him, but he really wants to understand this. And we stand ready to ensure that we are able to engage, explain our domestic policies and our national interests, but also have a relationship that is mutually beneficial with the U.S. We'd also be able to illustrate how this relationship is mutually beneficial for both countries. So but I think that element of him saying, look, there is an investigation that we're looking at, is something that should suggest that this is not a foregone conclusion. They too are applying their minds, and they too will be willing to engage with people who actually have an informed understanding on these issues.
Fair enough. I understand your position of predicament. You're in diplomacy, and you can't be as outrageous as he can. But to suggest that he really wants to understand us goes very much against the grain of everything he's saying. He's saying they are treating certain classes of people very badly. That's like coming across as a fact. He's not saying I've heard. He's saying he's saying it down as a fact, right? And then saying a massive human rights violation at the minimum is happening for all to see. The United States won't stand for it. We will act. Also, I will be cutting off, he didn't say I may, I will be cutting off all future funding to South Africa. Then he's saying until a full investigation. That means first the cut-off, then the investigation. Now, why I'm putting that to you, I mean, you and I are on the same side about our country, but I think we have a huge problem on our hands to try and convince Donald Trump that he's not wrong, because he's getting information from somebody, and you mentioned certain parties already, could be others too, and he appears to be he's going to stick with it unless you come back with a remarkable comeback story that will get him to turn this thing around.
We have a mission in the USA, Ashraf, and led by Ambassador Rasool. That's part of their role. They would be engaging their counterparts as well in the US, and we will be engaging. So that's the starting point. So the engagements will happen. And the fact of the matter is, if one carefully looks at the fine print, if in the UN foreign aid policy that's just been released, one of the things they've said is that they will be freezing funding in any event, I think for a period of 90 days. So a careful reading would say that this decision really falls within that sect, and it's something that is along those lines. So we understand it in that sense. But what's also important here is that insofar as PEPFAR is concerned, you would have seen the presidency have said that it amounts for 17% of the work that we do in that particular sector. And so that is something that is quite self-evident, with something that we can then clearly start looking at as a risk in our health policy and how we address some issues in that regard. So we are on top of it without doubt.
Okay,
and I think what's important is let's deal with the misinformation instead of us speculating about.
All right, very quickly, we're running out of time here. Very quickly, you mentioned AfriForum. Do you really think that their lobbying has effectively gotten to the ears of Donald Trump and others like him, and that's caused the shift? Do you think they've got that much clout to convince him and others like him?
If you look at the forums in which the AfriForum has appeared in, your Fox News and various communities, which have been quite instrumental in that way in this current administration's policy outlook, the Trump administration, we do think that their misinformation has not been without any consequence.
Okay, just lastly, in 30 seconds, how do you deal with this? One is having these conversations from our ambassador and from others, I understand that. But broadly, do you then go on your own information campaign explaining exactly the nub of the story around expropriation? You got
precisely,
20
and
seconds.
that's what we will be doing as the South African government as a whole, and like we have done in the minister's statement, is to say that, look, firstly, a law like an expropriation law is not exceptional to South Africa. Many countries have expropriation, and in fact, in the European Court, there's even been a ruling that it is permissible to compensate someone below market value if it is in the national interest and public interest to do so. So it's really it's not unprecedented.
That's where we leave it. Crispin Peary from International Relations, a spokesperson there. Thank you for your time. Clearly a hectic time for you.
Action is getting tougher in the second half of the league. The Folks want to ease off pressure with a win, but the Eagles aim to fly with 3 points to remain in the top 5. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Catch Borussia Mönchengladbach FC versus Eintracht Frankfurt FC on Saturday, 8 February at 7:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere, for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is closing on the 3rd of February 2025. Explore the theatre of the mind and write your 60-minute radio drama play and email it before 5 p.m. on the 3rd of February 2025. Late submissions will not be accepted. For further information about the competition, visit safm.co.za or send an email to drama@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
So we know it's February, it's the month of love, and you could fall head over heels in love with low-cost insurance for your older car. Now, with OUTsurance Essential, accident claims are paid in cash, so you can choose the panel beater you want to choose. You can even top it up with motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns. Get saving with OUTsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rands. SMS CAR to 43187, not out, car, you got that. SMS CAR to 43187. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's, and information available online.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's get into other issues linked very much to the story. And by the way, certainly we're happy to get your thoughts on this issue. It is the National Pulse. So what for you moves the National Pulse today? I think I know. 086 000 2032. Then you can WhatsApp, text or voice note 0614 104 107. Right. So, by the way, we'll be chatting to Kali Creel from AfriForum, I believe, after 4 o'clock. So looking forward to that conversation. Right. But in the meantime, let's get on to another issue which links to all of this, right? To what extent will Trump's threats rattle bilateral relations? And perhaps the most important issue between what may or may not happen between South Africa and the USA is, can South Africa afford a political and economic fallout with the United States? Can we afford it in monetary terms? Can we afford it as a country diplomatically? Dr. Lawrence Karumba is with me, international relations expert and researcher at the Makungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection. Dr. Karumba, good to connect with you once again on the National Pulse.
Hi, good to be back. Thank you.
Thank you. So, first of all, what's your assessment of what you've just heard over the last few hours?
Well, I mean, the issue of Trump threatening to remove foreign aid, I think it tells us several things. First of all, it tells us a lot about the quite extraordinary level of influence of Elon Musk in the current U.S. administration, because this is clearly where these ideas are coming from, I think, and it seems obvious that it's based on a response to the recent passage of the Expropriation Act in South Africa. But I think that something that's important to understand is the background of all of this, which is the changes that we're seeing in U.S. foreign policy to all other countries across the board. Right? So I think that South Africans are getting quite upset because we're hearing that, Trump is issuing specific threats against South Africa. Mm-hmm. But I think really this is just a specific case of something that is already being threatened, in a sense, against every other country, or at least against every other country that receives U.S. foreign aid. Because what we're seeing from the Trump administration, I think, is a process of moving towards the dismantling of U.S. foreign aid in general to all countries. And so, in a sense, the specific threats against South Africa is, I don't want to say it's meaningless, but I think it's maybe less of a big deal than what a lot of South Africans are thinking, because we would be dealing with this regardless of whether Trump is tweeting about South Africa specifically. Okay. If that makes sense.
And that brings me on to the next question. So assuming he follows through, I mean, the issue of funding for around healthcare, I mean, has already effectively happened. There's been like a 3-month stay of execution now, but effectively that's not talk, that's happening, right? Then there are many other issues. We know the issues of AGOA. There could be a whole lot of other things too that we could be talking about in the future. So here's the question. Assuming that the diplomatic differences are not resolved, right, and Trump follows through with his clear threats or decisions as per his tweet, right? The question is, can South Africa afford a diplomatic and economic fallout with the USA?
Look, it's, so the basic answer to that question is no, and we should try to avoid it as much as possible. We should do whatever we reasonably can to try to stay on Trump's good side. And if that might mean, that our president has to sort of phone him up and try to flatter his ego a little bit. I mean, that's basically what every other head of state around the world is trying to do. and that is, that's just kind of the survival strategy that other governments are having to adopt for the next 4 years, basically. But in other ways, I think that what this is showing us is some of the danger of aid dependency, and that we need to be thinking about alternative ways of doing things. And some sort of unorthodox economists like William Eastley, Dambisa Moyo have been talking for years about how is foreign aid actually a good thing, or does it just encourage countries to become dependent? And I can't help but think that maybe in retrospect, it seems like we should have been doing a better job of building up our own strong infrastructure to combat our HIV/AIDS pandemic. And maybe to some extent we neglected that because we felt that, the US is funding that and we can rely on them to keep funding that because it's a good program. And we're kind of learning a very harsh lesson here that, that aid is not something that you can just rely on indefinitely.
I think that's a good point. But in terms of you saying maybe Ramaphosa needs to give Trump a call and just sort of boost his ego. Do you think he's swayed by that sort of things where you're the greatest president around and we love you? You think that's going to sway him?
It seems like based on how many other countries seem to be investing in the same strategy, he does seem to respond to flattery. But it's hard to tell. When you're dealing with this kind of personality and psychology. But what I can say is that if we look just in terms of interest, political interest, right, it seems as though we are entering an era of world politics where things like foreign aid is no longer popular anymore. That when you poll the U.S. voting public, they no longer like the idea that their money is going to other countries. And voters on the whole have probably in South Africa too, by the way, voters have a dramatically overinflated idea of how much money goes into foreign aid. A program like PEPFAR, which is not even like 1/10% of the U.S. budget, but I think in opinion surveys, most Americans say that they figure that about 15% of their government budget gets spent on foreign aid.
Okay.
It's a massive misapprehension, but it's become politically quite popular for governments to say, "Oh, we're going to cut off supplies to other countries," and it's linked, I think, to the backlash against trade and the backlash against migration.
All right.
Countries are becoming more selfish.
We're going to leave it at that. Dr. Lawrence Karamba, thank you for your time. And it is $1 million question, isn't it? How does South Africa and other countries, but let's take our country, how do we build an economy without the support of the type of aid that we've received up to now? Can we survive it? Let's get the news headlines. Here's Kholofelo Tefu.
Thanks, Ashraf. In the headlines, the SAWA EFF leader Julius Malema says no threats made against South Africa will stop land expropriation without compensation from going ahead. This after South Africans woke up to news of U.S. President stating that U.S. will be cutting off all future funding to South Africa. Lawyer representing the 8 former VIP protection members of Deputy President Paul Mashatile says a social media video is not enough to be considered as reliable evidence in court. This after the video that went viral showing the officers allegedly assaulting civilians on the N1 highway in Johannesburg in July in 2023. In Johannesburg, Mayor Dada Morero says vandalism of traffic lights across the metro remains a serious problem. This and more at 4.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Woodmead Drive northbound has delays approaching Maxwell Drive, and the M57 is closed near St. George's Hotel. In KZN, Umgeni Road westbound, slow moving through Springfield Park and the M25 Commercial Highway, queuing between Mandela Road and Duffs Road. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road exit, the M5 southbound is slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit, and the mining in Daba is underway at the CTICC until Wednesday, so expect traffic restrictions and delays on local routes. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
I wish you'd see how people are running to to get to the sports desk with seconds. I mean, quicker than what's that guy's name? Usain Bolt. Somehow I think so. Okay, what's your fast story?
Well,
what's your top story?
A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. We start things off with football, where Kaizer Chiefs head coach Nasruddin Nabi says that he's starting to see progress in his side. This is after their 1-0 loss to Orlando Pirates at the weekend. This was Chiefs' 6th loss this season, 15 points behind leaders Mamelodi Sundowns, who have 2 games in hand, and 9 points behind Pirates, who have 3 games in hand. But Nabi still believes that his team is on the right track after 15 matches played.
Parce que on n'a pas joué ici d'une manière meilleure parce que c'est le derby. On a joué parce qu'on est en train de progresser.
It's true that the performance was somehow good, but we believe that it wasn't good because it was the derby. We believe that it was good because the players are progressing and are getting where we want them to be. And as well, for the next games, when you have players that are going to come back from injuries like Ashley, like Duba, like Maurice, like Solomons, that's going to increase the level of competitivity in the team, which can only increase the level of performance for each one. And a player like Ashley in the history of the derbies has been very good since he joined the team.
Elsewhere, Manchester City boss Pep Guardiola says that he's not immune from being thrashed by other clubs, as this is the nature of football. City had won 3 of its last 4 games heading into Sunday's contest at the Emirates Stadium, but a 5-1 defeat to the Gunners was another crushing setback for City, particularly with the run of important games up next. It's the 4th time that City has conceded 4 or more goals this season, the most in a single campaign over the course of Guardiola's managerial career. And he says he's not happy about this.
It's happened. It's football. Always can happen to me too. So I'm not unique. So there's a lot of goals that happen, but I'm sad it could be more. It's not about that. So I'm a sport man and accept the defeats in a natural way. I'm so calm and relaxed when we win. It's just for the fact that we didn't do it. That is only a feeling. We won it, but it's happened. So I don't like it. I'm a little bit sad, but it's just to continue. Now we have a long week. We prepare the FA Cup and the games against Madrid, Newcastle, Madrid, Liverpool, and so on, and learn from that again. So.
Meanwhile, Ruben Amorim says that Manchester United are trying everything to strengthen the squad before the transfer window closes. The 40-year-old also said that it would not be an issue if Marcus Rashford started scoring for Aston Villa as his own side struggled to find the net. Now Rashford has joined Villa on loan until the end of the season after accepting that he was not going to be picked if he stayed at Old Trafford. And Amorim says that they desperately want to improve.
This market is really hard on the clubs. To make some deals here, it's hard. Then you have this urgency. Sometimes when you are in these moments, you make some mistakes. We are trying everything. Yes, we want so bad to improve. I want so bad to improve the team. I know what the team needs, but sometimes it's possible or not. But we are trying everything.
Moving on to hockey, the Indo Hockey World Cup got underway today. The SA women's side began their Pool B campaign with a 4-4 stalemate against Thailand. Then in golf, Rory McIlroy delivered an overwhelming back-nine performance for a 2-stroke victory at Pebble Beach Pro-Am to capture his 27th career US PGA Tour title. The 35-year-old made 3 birdies and an eagle after the turn of to fire a 6 under par 66 and finish on 21 under 267 at the famed Oceanside course. In cricket, MI Cape Town head coach Robin Peterson says that he's pleased to see some stability in the team this season after a dominant display over Pretoria Capitals to claim an unbeaten run at Newlands in the SA20. They wrapped up their final league match by 95 runs over Capitals in Cape Town yesterday, and Peterson says that he's impressed with each player showing up in their respective roles ahead of the first qualifiers against Paarl Royals tomorrow. And before I say goodbye, Ashraf, I mean, just looking at some of the games that played this past weekend and just listening to also what Coach Nabi is saying, that despite the loss, he's starting to see progress. And then you see a coach like Coach Amaram saying, listen, they're trying their best to bolster their side so that they can improve. But my question is, when you bring in a coach, right, and a team is not doing well, and the results still don't change, whose head do we call for? Do we say we're blaming the coach, or do we put it on the players because they've been there? And an interesting one, just earlier on, I was actually speaking to people in the office, and they were just saying it's quite interesting how when players leave Manchester United, it seems like they start doing well.
Well, look, we're talking of two different clubs, Man United and Chiefs. Although I've said often before, Manchester United, Kaiser Chiefs, what's the difference? There's no difference. Both huge clubs, and suddenly finding themselves in very, very unfamiliar territory. But I mean, to your point, I mean, so what do you think? I mean, who's the...
It's a very tricky one. I think for me, it's very tricky because you can't pin a club not doing well solely on a coach, even though they are the leader of the team.
I think it's over a period. It's very difficult to get rid of 11 players. It's just impossible from a labor point of view in terms of money and recruitment and getting 11 players. It's easier to get rid of one person, provided you believe that one person can't go any further. If you believe that person can go further, so like let's take Erik ten Hag, you believe he can go further, then you keep him. Then you start slowly jettisoning off the other players. If you think he can't go any further, then you get rid of him. Now maybe that's the position of Chiefs. I mean, they're not exactly in 12th or 13th on the log. They I think 5th even after the defeat. Yeah. And to lose a derby 1-11, these things happen, right? But if they find that down the line few months they still don't see any genuine promise, then there's huge pressure on that coach, because he's the coach of a huge team, one of the biggest South Africa's ever had.
Are you worried about Amaram?
Not at the moment, no. I think the sign has been very clear. They've messed up this entire season. It's a disaster. So he's not going to be charged. He's not going to be measured by this season. He'll be measured by next season. And once he signed up and he made it clear that I'm changing the system, and they agreed with him, then they knew they don't have the players. What's it? Round squares and pegs, and they don't fit in, right?
Yeah.
They knew there's going to be a mess, right? So they've written off the season, just like they've written off the season, I think 2 years ago it was, when they had Ranić coming in. So, no, I think he's hugely talented, but the problem is you're going to suffer tremendous pain if you're a Man United fan.
True.
Until waiting for the glory days to come again. Yeah.
I'm waiting to see how Rashford is going to perform at Aston Villa.
Well, let's see. He was a villain at Man United. You know that, yeah.
Outsurance are experts in what they do.
They get to understand what type of business are you doing so that they can insure you properly.
It actually validates why we're with them. If you haven't called Outsurance yet, what are you waiting for?
Switch to Business Outsurance today and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
The National School Nutrition Program and social grants are instrumental in ensuring that children's needs for food and other essential services are met. We need a minimum health promotion levy of 20% on all sugary drinks to support social protection initiatives. Find out more on the next episode of Chew on This at heala.org, HEALA.org, on 30 January from 3 p.m.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, there's lots of comments about many of the issues, and many of them are not just about Elon Musk, or rather Donald Trump, but certainly on Elon Musk too.
Hi Ashraf, Thomas from Randburg here. I think that this is Elon taking his revenge on the government for not allowing Starlink to run in South Africa without a 30% percentage of black-owned business involved. I think that's all this is, and I don't believe that anything that Trump says. He is just full of nonsense.
And somehow that nonsense convinces many people. I did say, well, you may be right. I did say Elon Trump, And yeah, they're very much in sync with each other, aren't they? Right, let's move on to another important issue as we get to the issues of the goings on around the tourism, rather the mining indaba that's taking place here in Cape Town, right? So we'll get to that in just a second. I'll tell you what, let me first start with the Mineral Resources Minister, Gwede Mantashe. Now, he spoke at the mining indaba today, reacting to what Trump had to say. And I just wonder, should the minister or any senior member of government be saying this?
With this standing threat that, yeah, because you passed an Exploration Act, therefore Trump will withhold funding to South Africa. And I said, let's not immobilize Africa. Let's withhold minerals to US. That is it. If they don't give us money, let's not give them minerals. But the reality, they take our minerals, but say we're withdrawing funding. No, we have minerals in the continent. And therefore we have something that we have. We're not just beggars. But we must just use that endowment for our benefit as a continent. But if, as a continent, we are frightened, we fear everything, we are going to collapse, and will collapse with minerals at our doorstep. So, my appeal is that Africa is the world's richest mining jurisdiction. And that issue is an issue that we must internalize as a continent, use it to our advantage.
But you can only use it to your advantage if you actually sell it off. And if you're saying, well, we're not going to sell to them, well, I mean, I can ask you this further question then. If it's simply a case of we do what we want, and I'm trying to be sober about it, then how come you accept funding from them regarding healthcare? Like, are you that independent at this point in time? I just wonder about that, okay? All right, let's talk about issues at the mining indaba, not directly related to the Gwede Mantashe story, but you certainly can comment about what he said. With me is Sir Stuart Ntlati, the BRICS ambassador for South Africa and the founder of the SNZ Industries. Stuart, thank you for your time. You lie with the National Pulse.
It's a pleasure to join in. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. Now, I understand, I mean, part of us talking to you, right, is to talk about some of the new concepts that have been unveiled, so to speak, at the mining indaba. And you're involved in one of them. Tell me about it.
Sir Stuart Ntlati here, representing SNZ Industries, which is a corporation that is committed to pioneering next generation technologies. We are presenting the Shesha Hazmat technology at this year's mining indaba. This is a culmination of 10 years of dedicated research by young South African researchers and scientists, where we have pioneered a technology that can eliminate many challenges in the mining industries. As you all know that the mining industry is bombarded with insurmountable number of explosions, accidents, people being trapped in the mines. And one of the main problems is the mine's inabilities to detect these problems before they come about. So we sat down and pioneered a leading technology that can alleviate this problem or get rid of it completely. So this is a very portable 36 centimeter by 36 centimeter robot that is made out of graphene. So the structure of the device is very sustainable, it's very strong and unbreakable. So it can withstand any impact that can come on top of it. So this robot is able not to only predict the next explosion or the next casualty in a mine, but it is even able to tell you which gases or which minerals or elements that are in high contrast in a specific environment. It's able to tell you that there's too much methane in this area and it is likely going to explode in the next 15 to 20 minutes or in the next hour or day. So the robot is designed and programmed to detect a mining casualty before it even happens. This is inspired by the incident that happened in Boksburg a few years ago when a Rishanka exploded. And one of the challenges was determining what gases are in this tank and how do we prevent explosions from happening. And we realize that this technology is going to be more relevant or more usable in mines, where mines are bound to experience explosions and so forth. So the robot is able to detect an incident before it happens. It is able to go inside a fire and tell you that this fire is most probably caused by A, B, and C. It is able to tell you that around the fire or around this area in the mine, there is X number of people. This is a live video of the people that are there. This is how badly damaged or how badly hurt they are or damaged the area is. So this is a fighter that goes in the middle of the fight and tells you what's happening in the fight. It's not designed to assist human beings or anyone caught out in that fire, but it is able to give real-time information. And information is very critical in making an informed decision as to what should be happening.
All right, fair enough here. How well has it been received? It sounds very, very good. How well has it been received?
We have not unveiled it to the public. We are going to unveil it to the public in the next few days. But those who have had a preview of the technology, they are blown away. They want the technology to be made a mining standard. They want this technology to be present at each and every mine around the world, with some praising its safer handling and transport management system and its streamlined response and recovery systems.
Okay, well, it sounds very, very good, and I wish you all the best, because clearly the beneficiaries would be all the mining industries, the entire mining industry in South Africa, and maybe even abroad as well. So Sir Stuart Ntlati, the BRICS ambassador for South Africa and the founder of Ascensat Industries, delivering what is called the SESHA, the first of its kind innovation set to revolutionize mining safety, where you get an early warning alert around mining issues or a potential explosion, as we witnessed in that region in Boksburg a few years back. I'll take your calls, I'll take your comments, and if you're up to tweeting, you can do that. Use the hashtag The National Pulse. Just tag me, Ashraf Garda, do tag SAFM Radio as well, and add your thoughts and add your comments. But perhaps I think the fundamental issue, besides just telling me what you want to say about Donald Trump and Elon Musk in South Africa, how do you take this conversation forward? If you were the president of South Africa today, what would you be doing right now regarding what you just heard? Ignore, come up with a plan. What would you be doing? Calling up an indaba of your own? I'd love to know. This is the National Pulse.
We definitely know what good insurance is. Our insurance don't delay when it comes to any claims. If something happens to one of our vehicles on the road, service delivery is the main thing.
They make sure that you are a satisfied customer from the beginning to the end.
It's definitely a win-win with our insurance.
Switch to Business Outsurance today, and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Get back to the grind with Puco, where every journey begins. We're a trusted partner who's there with you every step of the way. From sand to sandware, basins to bricks, and paint to PPE, we provide the tools and support to make your vision a reality. We believe every measured cut and carefully placed nail leads to more than a building. It's about trust, safety, and the assurance that no matter the challenges, it will all come together. Find your nearest store on puco.co.za. Begin with Puco.
Puco. Our story is a South African story.
Anchored in the belief that it takes all of us to build a country that thrives.
To educate our children for a brighter future. To care for our health and well-being.
To nurture our environment to sustain future generations. And to transform and build a stronger nation.
When no one is left behind. Inspiring each other to succeed. Anglo-American.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
I'm looking at a tweet from a journalist, Ray Hartley, saying all of this could be cleared up by Cyril Ramaphosa, stating clearly that in South Africa, no private property will be seized without compensation. Strangely, though, No such statement is forthcoming. That was an hour ago. Okay, let's get your calls. Raj in Durban, go for it.
Yes, good afternoon, Ashraf. I want to talk about Donald Trump.
Yeah, go for it.
Yes, I want to say the United States is not an angel in the world. They themselves put the Red Indians into reserves. Okay? And second, the white paleface, I don't know if you know, the Red Indians used to call them paleface. Okay? The white people in the United States, they slaughtered bisons by the thousands to starve the Red Indians.
Okay, but I mean, what's now they don't even call it
Yes,
that.
I'm coming.
But I mean, what's your point, very quickly? What are you trying to tell me?
Look, you must put two and two together.
No, man. You know what?
The
It's not for me to
United
put two and two together. Raj, you've got 30 seconds to make a point. Go for it.
What's more, the America displayed defoliant in Vietnam when the Vietnamese women were farming and they reaped the harvest. They gave birth to.
Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm not able to put two and two together. I'm really sorry, Raj. Thanks for that. Papillon and Elders, go for it.
Yes,
Papillon, you live on the air. Go for it. Papillon, hello. Yeah, you live on the air. Go for it.
Hey, my friend, how are you?
I'm good. Right, go for it.
Wonderful, wonderful. You know, just for, Trump spoke of the atrocities. Not only one atrocity of the ANC's the clandestine issue. And now the ANC, they want to meet Trump concerning the appropriation issue, the land appropriation issue. And yet, there is nothing else spoken of the ANC. They are speaking nothing else of the other atrocities. And I'm dead sure one of the others is the Bella issue, because it is a fact, the way I see it, that Mr. Ramaphosa desires to annihilate Afrikaans. That is another atrocity which I would think that Mr. Trump is also eyeing. And because of that, I'll tell you, I foresee great calamity from Zanzibar, thanks to you, Mr. Cyril Pinocchio.
Okay, got that. You've made your point, Cyril Pinocchio, as you called it, from Papillon and Aldos. We do have diversity of views, don't we? Dumila in KZN, go for it.
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Go for it. What's your point?
Good. Just quickly on the Trump tweets, I want to backtrack a little bit. Hopefully, this also talks to both black and white South Africans. The tweet was very careless, but it's also a result of our own social issues. Number one, if we go back to the issue of farm killings don't only affect white farmers. Maybe the mistake is that we only call farmers, we only refer to white farmers, we refer to them as something else, because the statistics of the atrocities that are experienced by the farming community is affecting both black and white farmers. If you go to rural areas in KZN, and even in Mpumalanga and Eastern Cape, farmers, black farmers in particular, are also struggling with the issue of cattle theft and farm killings, which do not make
Okay, so I hear you. So link it to what Donald Trump said, because I mean that's the key focus here.
Yes.
What's it?
Now, the issue is it's all race related. The AfriForum played the race card without making a clear depiction of the South African issue, the race issue, or the current issue that is faced by all farmers. It's not just white farmers. So even my appeal would be to say, as South Africans, we should stop racializing our issues, because with case in point with the farming issue, both black and white farmers are affected.
Okay, you've made your point. Thank you for that. Right? Thanks for that. You made your point. I mean, yes, I think we know that there's been a narrative played out that only one group bears the brunt of all sorts of killings. But conversely, we must also come up front and say all killings are bad. They're all wrong, no matter who it is that are victims. English speaking, Afrikaners, is it Xhosa, is it Zulu, doesn't matter what. It's just not on, right? Okay, more thoughts from you. Let's hear it.
Hello, Ntate Ashraf. Like I said this morning, that this issue of America, this issue of Trump, that we just need decisive leadership. We just need a political will. We just need somebody who will stand up and confront them head on. You see, we need guys like Julius Malema. That there's no other truth beyond that one. We have to swallow our pride. The better we do that, the less chest pains we'll have. Because now that you see things are getting out of hand, America is disrespectful, you see, on us, because we are used to being beggars, you know. If we can make things ourselves, it is going to take time, we know, but change is pain, man. Change is pain. We are even trying to make this thing look beautiful to impress Trump. We don't talk things that will upset him. That's very wrong, man. And even AfriForum, I mean, it's a problem in South Africa.
Well, okay, firstly, I think I must ask all you guys, please, if it's a WhatsApp voice note, we can't go more than 30 seconds. So this one is 53. We're really not going to be able to play them any longer because it just means it takes up too much time. Interesting, you bring up decisive leadership like Julius Malema. So he made the point today that no matter what, it must be expropriation without compensation, almost like a blanket statement. I mean, is that the way... Is that the way you want it for just about everything, as opposed to the current situation, which is, that's only in exceptional circumstances, by the way. Right, I'm trying to pick out, you see, this is it. If they're too long, I can't play them. Okay, here's one.
Afternoon, President Ashraf. Concerning what is said by President Trump, President Ashraf, why somebody don't want to take a blame here? They say AfriForum is responsible for President Trump's statement. Was it AfriForum who said there is a Hamas in South Africa? Was it African Forum who challenged Israel in ISIS? If it's them, they must take the responsibility. If not them, they must think again, the South Africans. Thanks, Ashraf. Better here.
Okay, thank you for that. But I mean, okay, are we making the assumption that this entire situation is only on the basis of what happened in South Africa's stance against Israel? And if so, should South Africa have not done what they did regarding Israel and stayed out of what, for all intents and purposes, many people, not me, many others, who knows far more than me, legal minds, have said, that's a genocide. Should we just step aside? Just think about it. Let's get the news. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Holofelo.
Thanks, Ashraf. Top stories. The Sawa Malema says no threats will stop Land Expropriation Act, and Meyiwa murder trial postponed to April. Good afternoon. I'm Kulufelo Defo. EFF leader Julius Malema says utterances by U.S. President Donald Trump on South Africa's Expropriation Act are offensive and undermine the country's sovereignty. This morning, South Africans woke up to news of Trump stating that the U.S. will be cutting off all future funding to South Africa. He accused South Africa of confiscating land and badly discriminating against certain categories of South Africans. But Malema says no threats made against South Africa will stop land expropriation without compensation from going ahead.
The statement by Donald Trump is offensive and is a reminder that our reliance on foreign aid and foreign direct investment surrenders us to the will of imperialists who use money to dictate the economic and policy direction of Africa. We want to make it categorically clear to the President of the USA that we are going to expropriate land without compensation and pursue legislative measures to do so, and no threat will stop us.
Meanwhile, Malema has called for the closure of the Rwandan embassy in South Africa. He says there is no need to continue diplomatic relations with a country that undermines its sovereignty. Malema has urged President Cyril Ramaphosa to take stringent action against Rwanda if it is found to have played a role in the attack of South African peacekeeping troops in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Malema again called for the withdrawal of South African troops from the DRC.
It is unacceptable for our soldiers to be caught in a conflict where their presence does not serve the interest of peace in the region. Should it be established that Rwanda deliberately targeted South African forces, then President Cyril Ramaphosa must act decisively. If Rwanda is found to be directly responsible for the attacks on South African troops, then all trade agreements and engagements with the country must be revoked without any hesitation. The embassy of Rwanda should be closed with immediate effect.
Lawyer representing the 8 former VIP protection members of Deputy President Paul Mashatile says a social media video is not enough to be considered as reliable evidence in court. Advocate Mswazi Makubele has been cross-examining a forensic expert on the authentication of the video that went viral, showing the officers allegedly assaulting civilians on the N1 highway in Johannesburg in July 2023. The accused are out on 10,000 rand bail each. They face several charges including assault, malicious damage to property and pointing of a firearm. Makubele lashed out at the witness who the court ordered not to be named, saying he does not qualify to be called a forensic expert.
You have the first column, the second column and the third column, which applies on both exhibits. And in both exhibits you say video date, video time, not available. Am I correct?
No, video.
Of course, I don't know about Exhibit T, but in as far as Exhibit P, what you are saying, that date and time are not available is not true.
Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero says vandalism of traffic lights across the metro remains a serious problem. Morero was speaking to members of the media on the progress made in the rehabilitation of the Lile Ngoyi Street, formerly known as Bree Street in the Johannesburg CBD. The street remains closed after a gas explosion in 2023. Morero says they are working with Johannesburg Metro Police to try and prevent this.
One of the major problems we are experiencing is vandalism. You fix it today, 3 days later, it's back to square one. Either the SIM card has been stolen or the copper has been stolen, and the traffic light has been cut. JNPD, and probably might have seen it today, has been deployed in key centers.
And finally, Defense Counsel in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, Charles Mnisi, says he is not ready to proceed with the cross-examination of lead investigator Brigadier Bongani Gininda on behalf of accused number 1. Mnisi was given time off almost 2 weeks ago to go through voluminous court records in order to prepare to present Muzi Sibiya. He took over as Sibiya's lawyer after his lawyer died in December last year. Sibiya and 4 others are on trial at the High Court in Pretoria for the 2014 murder of the Bafana captain. Nisi, who is also representing accused 3 Mthobisi Ngcuba, says he needs more time to prepare.
I'm not in a position to proceed, my lord, with the matter because I yet have to consult with Mr. Sibiya. I've already come across certain sections in the record which would necessitate me approaching other witnesses as well to confirm the versions, to confirm whether there's a lot of things that I need to confirm, my lord. So I don't want to come here and present a haphazard version that comes from Mr. Sibiya. So I want to come here and present a very formidable version.
The trial has therefore been postponed to the 14th April this year. Recapping the top story, the SAWA EFF leader Julius Malema says utterances by U.S. President Donald Trump on South Africa's Expropriation Act are offensive and undermine the country's sovereignty. Headlines at 4:30 for SAFM News. I'm Kulufelo, therefore.
And coming up in your sports, the SAWA Stormers dealt with the injury blow tickets to the clash between Mamelodi Sundowns and Orlando Pirates on the 8th of February sold out, and Sheldon Hayes targets national 400-meter hurdles record. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Afternoon, starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg, slow moving towards Crown Interchange, and Summit Road westbound in Midrand has delays at Blue Hills. In KZN, Umgeni Road westbound slow moving through Springfield Park and the M25 Commercial Highway, queuing between Mandela Road and Duffs Road. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound is slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit, the M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and there'll be road closures around City Hall as of 3 p.m. until midnight tonight for Sona 25 setup. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
With Ford's Blue Sky offers, get a new Ranger XL from just $5,899 per month, including our optional service plan. 10% deposit, prime is 4.75%, 40% residual. Visit your trusted Ford dealer today for Blue Sky offers, where our Ford family guarantee comes standard. Limited time offer while stocks last. T&Cs apply.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is closing on the 3rd of February 2025. Explore the theatre of the mind and write your 60-minute radio drama play and email it before 5 p.m. on the 3rd of February 2025. Late submissions will not be accepted. For further information about the competition, visit safm.co.za or send an email to drama@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Tell you what, there's so much that we can reflect on and get the calls coming, whether you want to call in or many people are tweeting as well on the X platform, or you can send us a WhatsApp. If you are doing a WhatsApp, really 30 seconds, please, okay? If it's going to go much longer, that we can't play them at all. Not being funny, there's just not enough time. So let me give you the numbers because they're important. 0614 104 107 for text and for voice notes. And then to call in, 086 000 2032. Right. So we've had one or two takes on the issue of Donald Trump and what happens next. We'll have further comments from different sources, different stakeholders all throughout today's show, being the National Pulse. One of them is from AfriForum. Kali Creel with me. Kali, appreciate your time. In fact, we'll get to, we have him now. Kali Creel with me from AfriForum. Appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting here on the National Pulse.
Yes, thank you so much, Ashraf. It's great speaking to you.
Okay, fine. So let me say this much. I'm going to read Donald Trump's tweet, okay, which, as you and I both know, are a reflection of what he actually said in an interview, right? And it says, South Africa is confiscating land and treating certain classes of people very badly. It is a bad situation that the radical left media doesn't want to so much as mention. A massive human rights violation at a minimum is happening for all to see. The United States won't stand for it. We will act. Also, I will be cutting off all future funding to South Africa until a full investigation of the situation has been completed. Now, Kali, you've commented about it as well. I know that. But first things first, what part of Donald Trump's statements do you agree with and do you disagree with?
Well, I think there is not at the moment large-scale confiscation of land, but what is the reality is that we have an expropriation act that allows for no compensation, which is actually expropriation without compensation. And those terms, in cases where it can be done, it's not only a few. It says, well, other issues can be included. So that is a reality, so that can happen. With regard to the negative handling of certain groups, I think the Bella Act that really is an act of aggression against the Afrikaans cultural community. And then, of course, the fact is this country has more than 140 race laws. So these are the realities. But I think what is important, this is not something that we rejoice about. This is something that I think one should be worried about. The fact is, this will harm everybody in the country. We need to save AGOA.
Okay, but Kali, yes. let me coming to that in just a minute. So I'm just trying to understand what parts don't you agree with. So you're saying you can see there's no confiscation of land at the moment, but there is an allowance for expropriation without compensation, yet it's, in terms of the explanation, I mean, you do agree that's not widespread, isn't it? If and when that happens, that's not going to be like a land grab. I mean, you don't foresee that, do you?
No, well, the fact is one never know which government comes into power. The Constitution was written with Mr. Nelson Mandela in mind, and then we got Jacob Zuma. So the fact is we should not have an act like this. And we tried to warn government since 6 years ago. We have engaged and said, please, this will have a negative effect on the international investment
Okay. So
and
would
it
you
be harmful for everybody?
All right. Would you then agree with Trump's statement that treating certain classes of people very badly, South Africa is treating certain classes of people very badly? Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, the worst thing any government can do is to threaten the existence of a cultural community by focusing on destroying their schools. And that is exactly what happened with Bella. It was a targeted attack on Afrikaans schools, on Afrikaans children. We tried to engage to solve that. We also have a problem that we have more than 140 race laws in the country. But of course, we don't, even despite this, we don't want sanctions against South Africa. Those people that behave foolishly, leaders within the ANC and unfortunately also the president, should be punished and not the country.
All right. Now, that's something you've tweeted about, right? So, and this is your tweet. You're saying AfriForum will officially request the USA to directly punish senior ANC leaders and not the people of South Africa. Right. So, I mean, that's your tweet. And I responded to your tweet as well. So I'll repeat what I said. I said, Cully, you are requesting a foreign country to punish the leadership of a political party of another country. How do you think Trump will do that? And if he succeeds in political interference in another country, then what's next? I mean, I'm trying to understand this. You know, how does he practically go and target leaders of the ANC when we are a democracy?
Well, the fact is, during the apartheid era, the ANC led a campaign to punish South Africa. The ANC is in fact leading a campaign now to punish the leader of Israel. So we cannot have double standards. The international community has to make sure, as an obligation, that the rule of law is upheld and that property rights are protected. And that is in our own interest because...
Yeah, but hold it. I think we need clarity. You see, the South African position with regard to the ICJs, because the ICJ allows for potential punishment of a country, and the ICC allows the punishment of an individual. Now, you're saying you're asking the USA to punish South Africa. You're not asking the ICC or the ICJ. There is a big difference.
No, we're asking nobody to punish South Africa. To the contrary, everybody listening to this program will be negatively affected. So we are actually the fire brigade. We are not the arsonists. We have not attacked property rights. So we have to now make sure that we save the situation. It can be saved, but then we will have to look at the.
All right, Kali, I want to find out. I want to find out how you save it, and I'll come to that in just a minute because I want to get your thoughts about the economic impact of it all. But I want to just pick out. This is important. I mean, you're saying you're not asking them. You're saying we officially request the USA to directly punish senior ANC leaders. I'm saying to you, if the United Nations wishes to punish, or the ICJ or the ICC, I mean, that's the forums you take. How does the USA punish South Africa? Or in this case, the ANC?
No, I think it's common practice in the world where countries can take a stance against certain leaders. Remember, it's not of our making that there should be punishment. Our view is that if the US wants to punish anybody, then punish the people they disagree with, and not the citizens of this country.
Okay.
And then, yeah, that's a
all right.
point.
So what type of punishment would you? I mean, if Trump asks you, what type of punishment do you think is most appropriate? What would be appropriate for you?
Well, I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope the situation can be solved. But you have said some things like travel bans. But of course, that is something a country can decide upon. But I must state quite categorically, we have not gone out to say, you know what, punish somebody. We are saying if they want to punish, then rather punish the leaders and not the normal people or ordinary people in the country.
All right, I hear you. I think that's a point that you've made, and we maybe interpret that differently. Let's move on to the next part of it, right, which is that including the ANC, the spokesperson, rather, of international relations today, Crispin Peary, suggesting that it is that Trump is offside with his narrative, but he's getting his because they're saying yes, we have expropriation without compensation, but it's not widespread, it's not planned to be wholesale, and a lot of Trump's thinking is based upon people whispering in his ears, and Crispin Peary specifically has named AfriForum in doing just that. What do you feel about it?
No, I think it's now blaming the fire brigade and not the arsonists. We've actually tried to stop this, to say, don't go ahead with this act. It infringes on property rights. It goes against the Constitution. And we've said that time and time again. In April last year, we wrote a letter to President Ramaphosa telling him that this is unconstitutional. It infringes on property rights. But he ignored us. But despite that, the U.S. has its own embassy here. It has its own research, and I think people should not overestimate us, that we can now give President Trump instructions. The fact is, this situation is the doing of the president. It's created by the ANC themselves, because they actually disregard the interests of South Africa.
All right, I hear you, but conversely, let's not overestimate the impact of AfriForum, but let's also not underestimate it, okay? Let's not underestimate it. What I'm saying, your grouping went on a lobby tour to the USA recently. I mean, clearly, the lobby tour is to influence people, right? So, as part of that, right, would you now, you or your lobbyists, would you speak to Donald Trump and saying, actually, there is no confiscation, that's your exact words for now, there's the potential for that down the line, but there's no confiscation at this point in time, and therefore, when Donald Trump says, the United States won't stand for it, I'll be cutting off all future funding, would you ask him to retract it, or would you say, go ahead?
Well, our message has been clear all along, and we have said that in a media conference. Those that are trying to portray us as if we sent the wrong message, they are totally lying. The fact is, we said we have a specific problem with Section 12.3 of the Act, which allows for no compensation, which is too broad. And that message we will continue to spread. We will also say that to President Trump. Of course, we will say to him there's not a widespread confiscation now, but we will tell him we are worried about the fact that it can happen. That is our message, and our message would also be, and our colleagues in the Solidarity Movement are going to visit the U.S., trying to save the day to get the U.S. not to kick us out of AGOA, because that is going to be detrimental to every single person except the politicians that
well, that's an interesting point, because many people would agree that the majority of farmers who've really grown massive farms in the country, and therefore agriculture is so important to their livelihood, in fact would be people that would be part of your constituency, isn't it?
Yes, most definitely, and that is why since 2018, when we spoke to the international community, we always said we don't want sanctions against South Africa. We want you to speak to the South African government not to go this route of disrespecting property rights. And that is still our position. Of course, this is going to hit everybody in this country negatively. Because it will hit factories, it will negatively affect poor people, it will negatively affect the middle class and the rich. That is why it actually angers us so much that this government disrespects property rights, because the consequences is too ghastly to contemplate.
Okay, so, this conversation will be ongoing for months on end, and we know that, right? The issue of property rights and the race laws that you spoke about, because many of that would be redress race laws, but that's another conversation, right? Is it fair to say, because you mentioned you don't have that much power to speak to the USA, but as you talk, Solidarity will be going to the USA to explain the Solidarity position regarding AGOA, which shows that you do have an ear of some important decision makers there, right? So, would you concede that in the efforts of AfriForum and perhaps Solidarity in the past, in whispering in the ears of important people in the USA that the response of, we are talking of Donald Trump here, he does say what he wants, and I think sometimes he says it completely on his own, that now his response has almost overplayed the mark where you can't control it, like the genie's out of the bottle?
Well, he has not responded to AfriForum. He has responded to a president that signed the Expropriation Act. He responded to a president that has done a number of, that signed the Bella Act. So it's actually ludicrous for people to say, well, blame AfriForum. You're blaming the messenger here. The fact is, the root cause is disrespect for property rights by the South African government. And if they rectify this problem can be solved. We cannot create fiction. Any person, also the US, can read the Expropriation Act, can read that it allows for no compensation, can read that you're not allowed to, in terms of property, make an investment for that property to grow. That is a terrible infringement on property rights, and
All
that
right.
needs to be addressed.
All right. So just the last point, right? And I mean, to pick up your tweet again, because it's an important point. You're saying AfriForum will officially request the USA to directly punish senior ANC leaders and not the people of South Africa. We as ordinary citizens are already being punished by a hostile and foolish government and the presidency in South Africa, and do not want to be punished as well. Now, I hear that, we've discussed that already, but here's the final point on that one there. As part of the influence of your tweet, would you be directly telling President Trump to say, please call off any thoughts of withdrawing any funding and any potential cutoffs regarding AGOA, because the majority of the country is not the ANC, and the majority are far bigger amounts of people compared to certain people that disagrees with the views of AfriForum, for example?
Yes, most definitely. Also in one of my tweets, I also said we will be writing to the US government to ask them not to punish South Africa. And we'll have to put a lot of effort into that, because it's in the interest of all of us. So that we'll definitely do, and actually urging them to also look at the interests of the normal people in this country. So that was the point of my tweet. And if they want to take on somebody, take on the leaders, not the people of this country.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. Kali Kriel from AfriForum, thank you for your time. So that's one view or another view. There are many views on this issue. Did you hear Julius Malema's opinions about this one? He's like saying, go for it all the way. Effectively expropriation without compensation, no matter what. We'll take your calls and further comments after this.
Action is getting tougher in the second half of the league. The Folks want to ease off pressure with a win, but the Eagles aim to fly with 3 points to remain in the top 5. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch Borussia Mönchengladbach FC versus Eintracht Frankfurt FC on Saturday, 8 February at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Right, it's the month of love. Now, time to find the perfect low-cost insurance match for your older car. Without insurance, essential, that is, you can get up to 1 million rands liability cover. So if you cause an accident, the other car will be covered for up to 1 million rands. And add motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns. Get savings without insurance essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rands. SMS CAR to 43187. You got that, CAR to 43187. Licensed insurer and FSP T's and C's and information online.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, we're going to chat, in fact, just for the moment, around the important issue of water research, right? Because there's been some important conversations about that, and the important role specifically around the Durban port. You know that there's been an issue that the Durban port's not been in such good shape for a while, and therefore even the port, I'm talking about the business of Durban, right, as opposed to holiday making, has actually had a massive drop-off compared to what we have been used to in the past, right? So let's talk about just that, and then I'll get to some of your thoughts just after 4:30, 10 to 4, about some of the biggest issues you wish to raise. Okay, so with me now is Wandile Komtupu, who's a research manager at the Water Research Commission. Wandile, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. So I understand, I mean, you have some important positions regarding the position and effectively the saving and rejuvenating the Durban port. So perhaps give us some context here.
Some 3 years ago, we were approached by the World Trust to do some research around the problem of trying to clean between the port of Durban, the pollution that is happening there and where it comes from. And we started that project. It took us 3.5 years to try and characterize the problem of the pollution. Where does the pollution, what sort of pollution is happening there, and where does it come from? Those kind of things. And identify those who are affected and those who are interested in having that pollution avoided or stopped at once.
So what then is the state of that Durban port right now?
Well, the state is not a very good state, because even if you were to drive along the promenade by the port, it stinks a little bit. It's because of that pollution.
And therefore, in terms of the commission, that before you launch into this project to preserve, what has gone into it? Tell me more. There have been attempts to try and clean up the port of Durban for a number of years, but there has not been much progress. And those who have been involved in the cleanup have been concerned about what is really going wrong, what are they not doing right in order to clean up this pollution. And our job as the Water Research Commission was to, invest in this research, to try and characterize this pollution. What is it exactly, and where does it come from, and who is responsible for this kind of pollution? What can we do about it? And who are the stakeholders that should be that should take responsibility for this pollution, and how can we stop? And what sort of model can we develop? So many questions. Can I give you 45 seconds to answer all of them in one go? Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Yes, and then we have done the research, and we want to hand over this report to those who should implement the eThekwini, the Transnet, and the Department of Fisheries, Forestry and Environment, and all those who are interested in the cleanup of the Durban port.
Okay, so you've got the report you're going to hand over, and hopefully they will implement as soon as possible. And you are pretty convinced from what I can get, what you're telling me, that the report will stick in terms of the recommendations made, right?
Yeah, it's because we have identified the problem and we have characterized the problem, and it should be easy to implement and the cleanup in a coordinated manner.
Okay, that's where we can leave it to Wandile Nomkupu, the research manager at the Water Research Commission. Thank you for that. Let's get the news headlines. It's just gone for 30 years, Golofelo.
Thanks, Ashraf. In the headlines, the SAWA Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola, says South Africa has noted with concern the comments by the President of the United States on the Expropriation Act. Meanwhile, EFF leader Julius Malema says no threats made against South Africa will stop land expropriation without compensation from going ahead. South Africans woke up to news stating that US will be cutting off all future funding to South Africa. And the 5 men accused of the killing of a police officer in Emelo, Mpumalanga, have once again been remanded in custody for a formal bail application. The accused appeared in the Emelo Magistrates Court for legal representation. Details at 5 with Greg House.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Johannesburg, the N1 southbound in Sunninghill has a crash reported at Rivonia Road. The N3 northbound is queuing on the link to the N12 east at Gillies Interchange. The M1 southbound is slow moving through Crown Interchange towards Boysons. Woodmead Drive northbound has delays approaching Maxwell Drive, and the N1 northbound in Midrand is queuing towards New Road. In KZN, the N3 westbound queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The N3 westbound is queuing towards Cliffdale. The M25 Commercial Highway queuing queuing between Mandela Road and Duffs Road. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit, the M7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound queuing towards the R300 highway, the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Yipte Yaga Avenue, and the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. With your traffic up.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkapele.
Hi, Tumi, let's talk about the Stormers.
Yeah, they've been dealt with the blow ahead of the Vodacom United Rugby Championship derby against the Vodacom Bulls on Saturday, with the news that Jaden Shekeleng is ruled out due to a shoulder injury. The shoulder injury that forced him from the field in the first half of the recent loss to Leinster in Dublin will rule him out of rugby for a while. Meanwhile, loose forward Tane Plumtree has been called up by Wales boss Warren Gatland for the injured Aaron Wainwright in the build-up to Saturday's Six Nations clash against Italy. Wainwright suffered a facial injury last week, and centre Owen Watkins is also undergoing assessment for a knee issue from the same match. In cricket, South Africa has congratulated the SA Under-19 women's team for finishing as runners-up in the ICC Women's T20 Under-19 World Cup. SA made history by reaching their first ever World Cup final, where they suffered a 9-wicket defeat to defending champions India. In a statement, CSA says that it shows that the future of the sport is bright, and they're looking definitely to build on that. In football, tickets for this weekend's Betway Premiership clash between lock leaders Mamelodi Sundowns and Orlando Pirates at Loftus Versfeld are sold out. Now, Sundowns currently have 6-point advantage over second place Pirates, but have played one more match than the Soweto side. The two sides have also scored the most number of goals so far this season and registered morale boosting wins in their respective matches this past weekend. Elsewhere, Magezi and Chippa United will hope to get back to winning ways when they do battle at the Old Bidamagaba Stadium tomorrow evening at 7:30. With 8 points to their name after 14 matches played this season, Magezi will head into their next league assignment sitting at rock bottom on the log. Magezi's only win in the league was last recorded on the 26th of September last year, where they saw out a 1-0 win against Golden Arrows at the Mpumalanga Stadium. Since then, the Limpopo-based side has been on an 11-match winless streak, where they recorded 6 defeats and 5 draws along the way. Elsewhere, Aston Villa have completed the loan signing of Manchester United forward Marcus Rashford. The 27-year-old has joined on a deal until the end of the season, which includes an option to buy for £40 million. United sources says that the terms mean a minimum of 75% of Rashford's wages will be covered, and Villa are not paying a loan fee. In tennis, Carlos Alcaraz says that he has no doubt that top-ranked Jannik Sinner is the best player in the world on current form, as the two young players continue to lay the foundation for an epic rivalry. Now, Alcaraz, who won the French Open and Wimbledon titles last year, splitting the 4 Grand Slam tournaments with the 23-year-old Sinner. The Spaniard also improved his head-to-head record with the Italian to 6-4, beating Sinner 3 times in as many meetings, and Sinner meanwhile won 73 of his 79 matches last year, including the US Open and the Australian Open, which he successfully defended at Melbourne Park last month. In athletics, South Africa's 400-meter hurdles champion Zane Geldenhuys is focusing on breaking the national record of 53.74 seconds that was set by Myrtle Bothma in April 1986. The 24-year-old sprinter from Athletics Gauteng North is determined to surpass this long-standing mark, especially after coming close at her Olympic debut in Paris last year.
Yes, definitely that is part of the plan, part of the process, and that is definitely a goal for me this year. I have to be. At the Olympic Games, I missed the SA record with 0.16, if I'm correct. I think it's a 53.74, I think. We must just make sure about that one. But yeah, I just missed the record at the Olympic Games, so definitely it's one of my goals.
That's it. It is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
And we will look forward to that. Absolutely. Thank you, Tumi.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game?
Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Well, Jimmy Muyaha comes up later, but for now it's Makwe Masilela, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, you've got news on local and global markets, but let's start with Pepco.
Pepco, Ashraf, the Q1 trading update afternoon to you and to the listeners. Revenue up 12%, driven by robust sales growth of 9.5%, and market share gain in traditional retail and fintech growth was sustained. And the very same fintech growth helped gross profit margin to improve. Sales growth was helped by the product availability, diligent execution by retail brands, and a more favorable consumer environment in South Africa, especially in December. And when it comes to the markets, as promised, Trump initiated a tariff war, imposing general levies on Canada, Mexico, and China effective from tomorrow. Trump's acknowledged that tariffs may cause some pain for Americans. The potential for escalating trade tensions adds a layer of uncertainty to the global economic outlook. South Africa and Europe are also potentially in Trump's tariff crosshairs. A model gauging the economic impact of Trump's tariff plan from Ernst & Young suggests it will reduce U.S. economic growth by 1.5% this year, and the broader financial markets have reacted sharply to these developments, with the US dollar strengthening against other major currencies, and the rand weaknesses were exacerbated by Trump's direct comments about South Africa. And locally, our FED mood fell for the third straight month in January as businesses worried about the impact of Mozambique post-election unrest, recent jet fuel shortages, and the planned closure of ArcelorMittal. And US trade tariffs sparked oil supply disruptions fears, but gains were kept by the fear that the very same tariffs could damage economies. Brent crude is up 1% at $77 a barrel. Yellow metal was off record highs under pressure from a sharp rise in the dollar, but safe haven buying kicked in late in the session. Gold is up 0.6% at 2,814, but platinum is down 3.6%. Global markets are experiencing a sell-off trade with the GSE down 0.6%, tracked mainly by our financials. The rand weakened almost 1% against the US dollar, is now 18.85 against the dollar, 23.28 against the pound, and 19.32 against the euro.
Perfect. Thanks for that. We will connect with you again tomorrow. Thanks for that, Makwe Masilela. Right. In fact, what we're going to do, we're going to do two things. We're going to chat. The plan is like 10 to the hour. We have calls and audience engagement, but sometimes we need to tweak it when issues sort of change things, and we've certainly had more than that in the last couple of days. But in a few minutes' time, we'll talk about the Technology Innovation Agency. Before that, we'll chat to Action SA's leader, Herman Mashaba, about AfriForum and Donald Trump.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, so, there's a whole range of opinions from different organizations and political parties regarding Donald Trump's comments and what's happened next, okay? So let's get the thoughts of Action SA. So with me is the leader of Action SA, Herman Mashaba. Herman, good to connect with you as always. You're on the National Pulse.
Yes, good afternoon, Ashraf, and compliments, and good afternoon to SAFM listeners.
Thank you. I want to do we still say Happy New Year? No, I think that has passed anyway, right? Okay, what I understand when you've heard what happened today from Donald Trump's side, you then responded, but specifically, a lot of your responses is aimed at AfriForum. Perhaps I'll leave you to the floor and you tell us what exactly are you that causes your angst.
Hello.
I was saying you then effectively responded to the Donald Trump tweet, but you directed it to AfriForum. Tell me about what do you feel about AfriForum?
Well, Ashraf, we woke up to the shocking news of President Trump actually coming out with unfounded, outrageous remarks around South Africa, and was shocked while one is still consuming this, see on national television, AfriForum actually continues spewing these lies about South Africa as if there's a massive confiscation of land and the human rights abuses of white people. I think it's actually, for me, treacherous what they're doing, because I think, Ashraf, you live in this country. All of us as South Africans, we know the source of this problem over many years, including ANC's 30 years of mismanagement of our economy. But for AfriForum to really go out and lobby and lie to the American people as if we have a crisis of white land being taken away from them and human rights abuses, actually, honestly, it's totally unacceptable. Let's deal. South Africa has got its own problems, but I think for them to go and misrepresent and mischaracterize our country is totally unacceptable.
All right. I mean, so there's two things out of that. Ert van Zyl commenting, and you know, he has made the point, and I just want to pick it out. This is what he's saying: we want the international role players to target with sanctions South African politicians that push through evil and destructive policies. I mean, that's what he's saying, right? Then we've also had Kali Kriel, as you're well aware of, also commenting, and he's saying AfriForum will officially request the USA to directly punish senior ANC leaders and not the people of South Africa. Now, he says more, I'm not going to repeat it. I've noticed that you've tweeted, in fact, you saying that they should be, AfriForum should be charged with treason. On what grounds?
Yes, I'm saying that I'm asking the president actually to investigate this matter, and as far as I'm concerned, this is totally unacceptable, because there's no mass actually taking away of anyone's land. There's no abuse of our fellow white South Africans. We are facing with a massive challenge of our history pre-1994. We're sitting with ANC's 30 years of mismanagement. So for anyone, more especially those who are responsible for centuries of oppression, the taking land away from us, it's unacceptable. Let us find a solution, and some of us are committed in making sure that we don't really disrupt our country and subject our country and our poor people to more suffering, because you can imagine if America goes out to impose sanctions against South Africa. If you listen to President Trump, he's not talking about targeting ANC people. He's talking about South Africa,
the entire country. Well, it's a point that I made. It's a point that I made.
And who's responsible for this? It's AfriForum and those behind them.
All right.
And that's why one of the things that I really request President Cyril Ramaphosa to provide leadership to this country. All these political parties who are in the GNU with them, let them all come out with press statements, actually give their views around what President Trump is actually
So,
suggesting.
interestingly enough, Herman, in speaking to Kali Kriel a few minutes ago, in fact, he made the point that he conceded there is no confiscating of land at this point in time, but he says the Constitution, according to him now, with the Expropriation Act, may well allow that sometime down the line, and he does agree that certain classes of people are being treated very badly. He's talking about the Bellable as a good example of his community being forced out. Right. Now, you've given your views about them already. I got that. What time, when you talk about leadership now, we're faced with this problem. Whoever whispered in Donald Trump's ear, and Elon Musk playing his part as well, right? What should the appropriate South African response be now?
Right now, it's about the South African government actually engaging the American government to really understand the problems of this country. But unfortunately, the ANC government under Cyril Ramaphosa and presidents before him, they've actually so failed this country. I hope one day his eyes can open to actually understand the challenges that this country faces. Before we have people like Donald Trump, who surrounded himself with people who are working with organizations like the AfriForum, actually in making sure that all of us as South Africans pay the price, not only for the 30 years of ANC government. We had the land taken for many years. These are issues, all of us as South Africans, let's sit around the table like we've done. Our constitution right now now, as it is, it does allow expropriation without compensation for as long as it is for public use. No one has ever lost his property because Cyril Ramaphosa or whoever woke up and taken anyone's land. And I think AfriForum and those involved behind this, they're exaggerating and giving fake news to the international community.
Okay, here's the last thing very quickly. As a person who comes from a business background, you more than anybody else understands this, right? Can South Africa survive a full-on withdrawal of aid, funding to South Africa, particularly in the healthcare industry? And if by chance that AGOA treatment, we get removed from that, can we as a country survive that?
Well, we'll survive, but it'll be hard for the country. It is for that reason some of us are standing up for our country. We are aware of the challenges our country is facing and saying, for us as South Africans, let's find a solution. Let us not go out and badmouth our country, go and spread and spew fake news that can negatively impact our country.
Okay.
Without any doubt, any sanctions or any withdrawal of $1, it's going to hurt our country. And who's going to be the biggest casualties? Our poor people who are today living without, living below the bread line.
Okay, Herman Mashaba, that's where we're going to leave it. Leader of Action SA, appreciate your time. We now move on to another issue, which regards technology that may really interest you.
Outsurance has another random fact for you. In 1998, a kid's 20 Rand pocket money meant a shopping spree at the school tuck shop. Now, they need about 70 Rand. The cost of living has gone up, but Outsurance is still committed to giving you big savings on your car insurance. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754 to switch and save today. Let's hear what real Outsurance clients have to say.
When you deal with Outsurance, it is effortless. They treated us like human beings.
With Outsurance, you always get something out. Outsurance has paid out more than 6 billion Rand in out bonuses. That's more than any other insurer.
With Outsurance, when you look at it, it sounds too good to be true, but it's good. It's true.
SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. Action is getting tougher in the second half of the league. The Folks want to ease off pressure with a win, but the Eagles aim to fly with 3 points to remain in the top 5. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch Borussia Mönchengladbach FC versus Eintracht Frankfurt FC on Saturday, 8 February at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere, for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's for now change tack completely. We'll talk further on the implications of that Donald Trump tweet and the Elon Musk cheerleading as well. Therefore, when I say Elon Trump, I may not be offside on that issue. Let's talk about the Technology Innovation Agency and all that they do. With me is Loyiso Tierra, the board chairperson of the Technology Innovation Agency. Loyiso, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
No, thank you very much, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners as well.
Thank you.
I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's always important when we talk about innovation, because innovation is such a big drive of economic growth in the world today, and I think technology as a part of innovation is doubly so. So perhaps it's a double talk to you today, right? Tell me more about what is it that you do.
All right. TIA, I'm the chair of the board of TIA, which is the Technology and Innovation Agency. That is an entity of the Department of Technology and Innovation, which is DSTI. TIA is mandated to promote the development and exploitation of discoveries, inventions, innovations. In short, basically to make sure that our research output is commercialized in public interest. And that's something that both the TIA Act and the IPR Act of 2008 talk about, that we need to make sure that our IP is commercialized in the public interest. And okay.
Yeah, and in doing that, I mean, you're saying, I mean, that effectively you're an industry board that represents the interests of the entire technology innovation industry. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're the only entity of government tasked with managing the national system of innovation, and ensuring that we fund both financially and non-financial support for innovators to make sure that they can commercialize their innovations and research.
I'll talk about the mining in Durban in just a moment, but it's interesting, you know, I had a chat with the head of I think it's H&M South Africa, and I've repeated the story before. She's Irish born, lived in America, and then the head of the South African leg, right, of H&M South Africa, and she made the point that South Africa does not understand just how incredibly innovative we find South Africa's youth. I mean, do you find, do you concur with that there's so much innovation amongst our youth, but it's not being heavily invested into?
No, I do concur. I think there's a lot of innovation that is happening, but I think there's been a lack of coordination, I think both between the private sector and government. There's a lot of innovation happening and commercialization within private sector, but I think to a small extent we can do better as government in terms of coordinating the entire national system of innovation. And I think that's what we're trying to do with our new strategy. Corporate strategy is still waiting for the minister to approve it, which is Tier 2.0. And the aim there is that we want to orchestrate the entire system of innovation systematically to make sure that all the effort that goes in can be harnessed in a strategic way and in a systematic way, basically manage it as a system, manage the entire value chain to make sure that we can have impact.
Well, I mean, that's good news. That certainly is good news as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I know it needs to be approved at board level, but what is your proposal just at the top level about what you talk about coordination and collaboration that's so missing right now?
So let me give you a practical example. A university will produce some IP. Someone like ourselves, TIA, will fund that IP. And then this person would want to do business with government. And then when they go to a government entity, someone will say, no, you need to follow PFMA. And in most cases, it becomes very difficult to do single source motivations, and they would want you to compete with big global companies. And you will find, as much as in the beginning, you might get support to get that your research commercialized to a certain extent, it becomes difficult to break through against the current global value chains. Because you'll be competing with companies in China that produce in scale. So if we as a government entity can be able to coordinate, at least government, to say not only do we get these things to a point where they can be products, but once we have South African-based products, let's make sure that we deliberately support those products. So I think that's the part that's missing, that thing that connects everything together, National Treasury and the different parts of society, to make sure that we do support local innovation.
And that brings me to the mining in Durban. So offhand, when we talk about the mining in Durban, many people say, well, what is technology innovation going to do with the mining in Durban? But clearly you're going to tell us why you're there, right?
Exactly. Mining has been the cornerstone of South Africa for a very long time. You've probably heard a lot of talk about beneficiation. And in fact, the minister today spoke at length, Minister Kwede Mantashe spoke at length about the fact that we take even our strategic minerals where we have them in vast quantities, like 80% of the global reserves. We will simply send those over to China. They process them, they sell us products at a much higher value, so they beneficiate these products. So one of the things that we have in what we call the decadal plan, we've put mining as one of our priorities at TIA to make sure that our mining products are beneficiated. And what that means to us is we need to innovate so that we can create products out of that we can sell, and stop simply just moving away raw minerals. Secondly, we're putting a lot of effort in making mining itself more efficient by investing in products, in projects. Some of them we've actually brought them today to demo at our stand, by making sure that we can have more efficient mining, more safer mining, more environmentally friendly mining practices, and those technologies can be sold around the world, including in Africa, and some of them have been able to do that. So that's mining is one of our focus areas to make sure that we fund the innovation and assist to just make sure that innovations that are in that sector, including other sectors, things. But we have a focus on mining because it's still the biggest sector in the country.
I understand that several innovators, therefore, are at the Indaba. Maybe you want to give them a shout out in terms of some of the names of who they are and what may come out of their presence there.
Yes, so we have Stone 3, which is basically a company that we funded, I think, to the tune of 19 million to date. It produced IoT devices that are basically provide sensors within the mining processes and give you real-time data. They use AI and advanced data analytics to really make the extraction and the extracting of the actual mineral much more effective. They've been doing so well so far. They are partnered with companies like Anglo American and in all their plants, both in the country and outside. We've got another one which is called Mining Shroud Detecting Technology. They also do similar things around using RFID and imaging methods to make sure that they can detect broken metal shrouds and components that can damage crushes in mining operations. We funded them for about 9.9 million, and they've been doing well so far and are in the process of commercializing their technology. We've got another company called AMD that does the treatment of water, and it's actually by a company called Mintech. They do a treatment of water from the mine to make sure that the water that comes out of that is clean. So we've got companies like that are coming with us, that are with us here. Another one is Settle Bet Detector.
All right.
So we've got those companies that we
so there's quite a few. So what we can do, we can wrap up and we're on to news time. If you can direct me to the website, a relevant website I can direct people to, and maybe tweet it out too so we can share that. And number two, just in 15 seconds, in being there, what has been the key message that the Technology Innovation Agency has delivered at the Mining Indaba? Just one key message.
All right. So our website is tia.org.za, and we are also on all the social media. The key message really is that the TIA 2.0, the new TIA, is there to make sure that we coordinate the entire value chain of innovation. And we're open for business. We're looking for partners, both funders and partners within the innovation system, who work with us. I was even listening to you earlier on. We are being sanctioned, but if we were doing our own local technology, it would be very difficult to sanction a country like that.
That is why innovation is very, very important. I'm certainly going to follow you on all social media platforms, absolutely. And I think you're quite right. I mean, this partnerships and collaboration is very much broadening the entire innovation ecosystem in our country. Now, that is something that's worth fighting for. Well, much appreciate your time on this issue, Loyiso Tiyira, the board chairperson of the Technology Innovation Agency, which is called TIA. Let's get the news. Here's Greg House.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, SA concerned over Trump's comments and strain in the manufacturing sector. Good day to you. The Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola, says South Africa's noted with concern the comments by the US President Donald Trump on the Expropriation Act. It was signed into law by President Cyril Ramaphosa a few weeks ago and deals with the expropriation of property in the public interest. Trump has raised concern about the act. Lamola says Pretoria will engage Washington on the matter.
We are a constitutional democracy, and the expropriation law that has been referenced to is not an exception. Many parts of the world do have expropriation laws that are used in the public interest and for public purpose. In the US, it's called the eminent domain. In the UK, it's under various laws which the government uses from time to time in the national interest and in the public interest. And this is what this law is about.
Meanwhile, the EFF leader Julius Malema says the utterances by Trump are offensive and undermine the country's sovereignty.
The statement by Donald Trump is offensive and undermines our sovereignty, and is a reminder that our reliance on foreign aid and foreign direct investment surrenders us to the will of imperialists who use money to dictate the economic and policy direction of Africa. We want to make it categorically clear to the President of the USA that we are going to expropriate land without compensation and pursue legislative measures to do so, and no threat will stop us.
European leaders, on the other hand, are warning retaliation if Trump delivers on his threat to expand US tariffs to include the EU. That's according to the EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, who says there can be no winners in a trade war. Kallas warned that China will be laughing on the sidelines if the US went ahead. The French President, Emmanuel Macron, has also commented. He says Europe will respond if its commercial interests are threatened.
If we are attacked in terms of trade, Europe, as a true power, will have to stand up for itself and therefore react. Now this is an action plan, but the question is how to do it.
The manufacturing sector continues to show signs of strain amid a recovery in demand from consumers and others. The ABSA Purchasing Managers Index, which measures the health of the manufacturing sector, declined by 0.9 to 45.3 index points in January 2025. This marks the third consecutive contraction and the lowest level since August last year. Natando Makutulela reports.
ABSA says the January PMI underscores weak demand, logistical disruptions, and rising costs. However, the improvement in orders and activity provides some optimism for recovery. Export sales recovered slightly in the same period, but the index remained below the November level. This is due to trade disruptions in Mozambique, fuel shortages affecting air freight, as well as the upcoming closure of ArcelorMittal's long steel business. On the other hand, the index shows that business activity increased by 3.2 points to 43.5 in January due to recovery in demand.
The 5 men accused of the killing of a police officer in Ermelone in Mpumalanga have once again been remanded in custody for a formal bail application. The accused appeared in the local magistrates' court for legal representation. The officer was shot and killed last month when he was ambushed while driving a state vehicle. Among the suspects is a former police officer. The NPA's Monica Newswa.
The accused who allegedly shot and killed Lieutenant Colonel Pete Pretorius in Ermelo last month appeared before the Ermelo Magistrates Court today for legal representation. All accused are remanded in custody, and the matter has been postponed to the 18th of February 2025 for a formal bail application. Due to the seriousness of the offense the accused are charged with, the state will oppose their release on bail.
The top story, the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation says South Africa has noted with concern the comments by the US President Donald Trump on South Africa's Expropriation Act. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khoes.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Stadium Management South Africa addresses Soweto Derby ticketing chaos and Stormers dealt with injury blow. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Johannesburg, the N1 southbound and four-ways queuing towards Winnie Mandela Drive exit. The N3 northbound in Bedford View is queuing on the link to the N12 east at Gillies interchange. The N12 westbound is queuing towards the N1 Dipkloof interchange. The N1 southbound queuing through Crown interchange towards Boysons. In Pretoria, Road has a crash reported at Rod Street and Eskampa Drive northbound queuing towards Mabopane Highway. In KZN, the N3 westbound queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, the M7 westbound is queuing towards Belleville Road exit, the N3 westbound is queuing towards the M13 Paradise Valley interchange, and the N3 westbound queuing towards Cliffdale. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. The N1 inbound has a crash reported at the Kuburg interchange. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit. The N7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound slow moving towards Voortrekker Road, and the M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the Tooth Fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Action is getting tougher in the second half of the league. The Folks want to ease off pressure with a win, but the Eagles aim to fly with 3 points to remain in the top 5. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Catch Borussia Mönchengladbach FC versus Eintracht Frankfurt FC on Saturday, 8 February at 7:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, we've had a range of opinions today from the spokesperson for international relations to Herman Mashaba, representing Action SA, to AfriForum. We'll get to Faiz Jacobs just now, former ANC MP, just getting his thoughts as a citizen, and Janine Hills will get her thoughts as a reputation management expert, really, giving her thoughts in terms of how this has been managed from a party political US-South Africa perspective. So looking forward to all of that. But for now, let's get the position of the DA on this issue. We're talking about, there's only one issue, really. What is it that drives the national pulse? Goodness gracious. Trump started it this morning, didn't he? So we have with us Karabo Khao, the DA national spokesperson. Karabo, appreciate you connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, Ashraf. Hello to yourself and good afternoon to all your listeners.
Thank you. Of course, the purpose of talking to you is to get your, as in DA, reaction to, first of all, the Donald Trump comment, because that's what it was first, and then converted into a tweet, right? So go ahead and tell us. Yeah.
So, look, the DA is deeply concerned, obviously, by President Donald Trump's threat to cut the critical aid funding and him saying this is response to the Expropriation Act. We have made it very clear as the Democratic Alliance that this act is not an amendment of Section 25, and so has the government of the day, so has Cyril Ramaphosa as well. We've made it clear that, yes, we are in favor of Section 25 and that the act is an extension of that. It is not true that the act allows for land to be seized by the state arbitrarily, because there is still a requirement for fair compensation that is legitimate for expropriation in terms of Section 25 of the Constitution. And while we also understand the political dynamics in South Africa, we're also very disappointed that there are individuals within the country who are trying to fearmonger and make life seem like it is not what it is. But that as it may, we're also very clear that we still believe that the United States is a valued partner to South Africa. We do have long-standing relationships with the United States. I mean, you would know that the PEPFAR program last year alone was funded. The funding we received from the United States there was about $453 million. And the projection for this year is $439 million. And this is funding that is vital to sustaining life-saving HIV/AIDS treatment and support for most vulnerable members of our society.
Okay, so I'll come back to the money side in a moment. So, interesting, in terms of Donald Trump's tweet in my conversation with Kali Creel earlier on, Kali from AfriForum conceded that there is no confiscation of land taking place in South Africa right now, number one. He did, however, say that he agrees with Donald Trump that people are being treated very badly, and he gave the issue of the Bella Act as an example of just that, like an affront to their community, mainly Afrikaans-speaking people, right? And he did say that there's a potential for the type of expropriation without compensation, because you never know who's going to be running the country down the line, sort of talking about the future, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, importantly, in terms of the DA's position, right, is there anything, firstly, in terms of what Donald Trump has tweeted about that you are completely critical of, besides disagreeing with him in the broad speak?
No, look, let's first deal with the treating of a certain clause very badly. I don't know who is advising Donald Trump, because let's first deal with the Bella example that you made. Mm-hmm. The Minister of Basic Education is working on regulations around that. And since the clauses 4 and 5 and the whole Bella has been signed by the president, we haven't seen any schooling interruption as far as the administration of education for Afrikaans learners or white children in South Africa at all. We haven't seen that. Those reports haven't been aired anywhere. So it would be disingenuous to also create fear on that respect. And it is on the basis of the regulatory power that rests within a DA minister, Sivile Kwakube, that we were able to, as the Democratic Alliance, find a compromising position on the Bella as per the NEDLAC negotiation outcome. Mm-hmm. So that is number one, Ashraf. Number two, on the expropriation, yes, Section 25 has always made room for expropriation, but it has always been expropriation with compensation. And the process of expropriation for public good has always been a thing that has always been there. And it is constitutionally something that we believe as the Democratic Alliance to be sober. It is in line with democratic principles. It strikes a good balance between seeking justice on the one hand and on the second end protecting property rights. And that is still maintained currently by the Constitution. It's still maintained by the Act. The only thing as the Democratic Alliance, Ashraf, that we've always said to be the problem that we've identified with the Act is the inconsistency that exists between two clauses of the Act around the process to be followed on arbitration, right? And the responsibility that would then rest in the shoulders of individuals in cases of dispute to seek the counsel of the court at their own cost. That's something that we are still working on within the GNU. And since the signing of the expropriation as Dot Vandag, we still don't have a problem where people woke up one day and their land was taken away from them.
Absolutely, yeah. So you made the point about you don't know who's advising him. But I mean, seriously, who do you think is advising Donald Trump?
Speculations are always there. I can't say because I don't have the authority to come and say weird things on air, right? And also add to the field that is out there.
Well, Elon Musk is certainly doing a lot of that. I mean, he's quite comfortable saying what he wants to say, as you know, right?
Yeah, which is dangerous, which is part of the reason why we find ourselves in the mess we are in, Ashraf. I do think it is irresponsible for any head of state to make such comments without there being at least a conclusion of the investigation that he's referring to.
Okay.
And particularly because, again, we said, the DA still values the relationship or the partnership that exists between the United States and South Africa. We think it's important. As a country, we've seen recent statistics that show that there have been increasing numbers of HIV and AIDS, particularly among young people. And as a young person myself, I don't want to wake up to greater statistics of people my age dying because of HIV and AIDS.
Absolutely, yeah. What do you make of Gwede Mantashe's comments? I mean, and I say that because he's part of the GNU that you refer to, so he's within the same circle. Today at the mining indaba, effectively saying, if they don't want to give us, the type of funding in terms of the health funding that we talk about, then we won't sell them minerals.
But that also is not helpful. So President Ramaphosa and the South African state is in engagement with the Trump administration. to clarify the contradictions. I do think it is irresponsible for anybody to, outside of the clarification table, to be adding fuel to the fire around something that we are witnessing ourselves to be a ticking time bomb. I mean, all it takes is for Donald Trump to hear something from somebody to tweet something, right, and make a decision. And that's not what we want. Again, I want to say it would be a tragedy if the funding that was determined, we were supposed to get, for that funding to be terminated because of a misunderstanding of facts, which is what it is.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I see Julius Malema from the EFF has been making the point that, and I'm paraphrasing, go full scale ahead with expropriation without compensation. But fine, he's outside the GNU. There's a big difference between him and Gwede Mantashe, right? Just a last thought, therefore, right? Are you happy with how up to now both the president as well as the Minister of International Relations has communicated their positions? And I know it was early morning in the USA via some of tweets and maybe just short video clips regarding their position and effectively trying to refute those wild claims from Donald Trump.
I do think the communication could have been clearer. If in fact there's still no clarity from what Lamola has been saying about what the contention here is. All you have to say is, while the Act does not need to be amended to meet the sequencing requirements as highlighted by Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Dean McPherson, there are also opportunities to deal with other concerns that have been raised, right, which are concerns around the constitutionality of it, since in the public since the assertion of the Act. But what must be crystally clear from the South African government here to dial down the mess is that it is not true that the Act allows land to be seized by the state arbitrarily. There is absolutely a requirement for fair compensation for legitimate expropriations in terms of Section 25 of the Constitution. This is true. This was what needs to be communicated by the South African government. But then again, in the GNU, the DA is in support of the processes that are being taken by government in engaging the Trump administration. And until we get an outcome of that, I don't think it would even be safe or wise for anybody to be going on an instigating spree.
Okay. Point made, Karabo Khawkhau, the DA national spokesperson. Thank you for giving us your insights, or the DA insights, regarding Donald Trump giving us an early morning headache. Perhaps I think that is really what it is. And Elon Musk doing the same thing. Much appreciate your time, Karabo. Right. In fact, what we'll do is we're going to get to Faiz Jacobs in a moment and then play some thoughts from Janine Hills right after this.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the Tooth Fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Susampa on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll get a fantastic price for your car. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
Our story is a South African story.
Anchored in the belief that it takes all of us to build a country that thrives.
To educate our children for a brighter future. To care for our health and well-being.
To nurture our environment to sustain future generations. And to transform and build a stronger nation.
When no one is left behind. Inspiring each other to succeed. Anglo-American.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, so one of the things outside the, who said what regarding this whole issue of Donald Trump's tweets and South Africa's confiscating land, and treating certain classes of people very badly, that's the one, right, is how does South Africa manage the process? How do you manage the communication when faced with this type of conundrum of the President of the United States, a very, very important partner, comes out and effectively says this country is treating people some people very, very badly. How do you manage the process? Who says what? How do they go about doing so? So with me is Janine Hills from the head of Authentic Leadership. Well, Janine Hills Authentic Leadership is a company. She's not live because we couldn't get her live, unfortunately. However, what she's done, she's shared some very important thoughts which she did earlier on, that explains what she feels needs to be done from a South African perspective in the field of leadership and communications to this issue, responding to Donald Trump, and perhaps could be the same about Elon Musk too.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Ashraf, as always, on your incredible show. It's a privilege to be invited onto your show and to be able to give commentary, given this watershed moment in our country's day, as far as brand, certainly, and reputation, and also the economy. So yes, I think we all woke up with a little bit of a shock with the mention from President Donald Trump about our incredible country, South Africa. So these are just a couple of points. And I'm so sorry I'm not unable to be in studio with you, and I appreciate you voicing and sharing my insights. And this is really just from being, running a company that's an authentic leadership company and having the experience of being a brand and reputation and crisis expert, both South Africa, Africa, and internationally. Really, I think it's about, first of all, compliments to our President Cyril Ramaphosa, for how he went out so speedily and timeously in a response, which was extremely cordial and diplomatic, as well as his team. We really have an opportunity. Whenever these crisis situations arise or blips in diplomatic engagement arise, we always, as a country, have an opportunity to leverage the international media platforms from a spokesperson point of view, because we can't afford to buy this media, even through Brand South Africa, through DIRCO, through GCIS. So this is when we can align our messages in a positive way, unpacked in a factual correctness, and actually use these platforms to put our best foot forward as a country. And we've got all the facts. It's not like we don't have the facts. It's not like we don't have the history. What we tend to often do, and certainly our president didn't do this, but other ministers have now fallen into this trap. And I've just seen a video now of one of our political parties also jumping into this situation. And this is when it's not ideal. So we don't need to be defensive. We don't need to be threatening. And that's when we fall into a trap of allowing other people to think less of us. So this is when we leverage off the success, we highlight to them and amplify the successes and what we're doing, the rationale behind what we're doing and how we're doing it, so that we are seen as and understood in South Africa, Africa, and internationally as a stable economic partner. We also work together with each and every South African and each and every individual investing and working in this country by putting our best foot forward, explaining what we're doing in a systematic way. But what we tend to do, and it's coming across today now, we have different ministers saying different things and different political parties saying different things, and that's where the confusion comes in. That's when the chaos comes in, and that's when people see us or view us as chaotic, and that doesn't play out well for us at the end of the day. So what we need to do is, first of all, I urge each and every political leader as well as minister to please be spokesperson and interview trained. That is an absolute priority. I was watching an interview In fact, I've watched quite a few of the interviews, and not one of them are really international standard from a eye contact point of view, a body language point of view, a dress point of view, and really showcasing the very best of who we are as South Africa and Africa. So this is a watershed moment. This can turn a potential crisis into a real positive, where we lead by example, we lead authentically, we're honest, we're respectful, we are engaging in a very diplomatic way. And that's what true leadership is when one is authentic, one is honest with integrity. That will lead a long way moving forward. So I hope, a couple of these discussions take place, but this is where we need to lead with integrity and lead in our beautiful, incredible, phenomenal country.
And that's Janine Hills, who heads up Janine Hills Authentic Leadership. And I think some really, really important insights that she gave. And I think that the key amongst the many takeouts is like, what an opportunity for South Africa to leverage off this crisis to be able to now share our message about our country globally. It's not something you can do every single day, and sometimes you have to get into paid-for marketing campaigns. This presents an opportunity worldwide to be able to front up to the global media, but to do that, you need to have your people, your spokespersons are trained adequately and world-class to do that. The other part that she made about that, you have to have a very clear, singular message, and you can't have different people from different political parties on the same side coming out and saying certain things, because then you have this recipe for chaos, because it's a mixed messaging. I mean, there's more. I think listen to the podcast. There's a lot to take out of that. Let's get a quick thought from Faiz Jacobs as well. He's a former ANC MP who's now a concerned citizen on this issue. Faiz, appreciate your time on the National Pulse.
Hello, Mashraf. Greetings to the listeners, and thanks for having me.
Much appreciated. Right, so what is your position on this issue?
Okay, so I tweeted this morning about Kali's response. So I think for me, I think Kali's response is disingenuous. I think it's actually treasonous because here is a fellow South African who's supposed to be a patriot. And now he's calling for the United Nations, United Government to impose sanctions on South Africans, our leaders. And this is a direct betrayal of our own sovereignty. I mean, basically, we are a democratic, constitutional country. These are democratically elected. Our president is democratically elected. So for me, this is not about democracy or even property rights. It's basically a right-wing Afrikaner nationalist group seeing their brothers, the conservative right-wing in America, and trying to piggyback on that and to undermine South Africa's land and justice efforts. And I think for me, that is, we need to call him out.
Okay.
There is a history of defending.
But let me ask you this very quickly. I mean, we're on to news. I mean, is it an AfriForum story, or is it a Donald Trump South Africa story?
No, it is a Donald Trump story, but I mean, it lends to their narrative of they being victimized, that the poor white South Africans are being chased to the sea. That's far from it. They enjoyed the democratic and economic benefits. We've protected. Mandela said we must kumbaya and sing peace, and everybody's on board. But they want to play the victim. You know, there was a democratic process. The country voted. They represented the parliament. We passed the NHA, the Bella, and all of those things. So now they want to use behind the scenes. So, I mean, it's lies that they're perpetuating. And unfortunately, we're so democratic. You gave him almost 15 minutes to peddle his lies. But, I mean, land justice is non-negotiable. And look, Afrikaners fear-mongering. The forum is fear-mongering. And it won't work. Because what we have the constitutional process, and I was very proud of the DA spokesperson that really articulated there's no such. I mean,
yeah, she certainly did that. I think very, very
clearly. I mean, we just know that Donald Trump is a bully, and he's being bullying his own friends. He's bullying the EU, Canada, everybody. And so we're also in the line. The fact that he's trying to bully us is also showing that we are actually important.
Okay. Faiz, I'm afraid time's against us. We're on to news. Sure. In 30 seconds, just one thought from you in terms of what South Africa should be doing next about this.
Okay, I'm calling for unity and transformation. Black, white, South Africa, rich and poor must reject the politics of division, and we must work together. And we will call out Kali and his privilege, protection of white privilege.
And that's
lies from their side. So we must support each other.
Much appreciated, Faiz Jacobs, former ANC MP, who's now a concerned citizen, as I suppose you should be as well, and I'm concerned too, absolutely. Right, let's get the news headlines. Here's Greg House.
In the headlines, City of Joburg's power utility City Power says it has suspended load reduction indefinitely. The Minister of International Relations and Cooperation says South Africa's noted with concern the comments by the US President Donald Trump on the Expropriation Act. And the manufacturing sector continues to show signs of strain. There's a full update at 6 p.m.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 northbound in Melrose is slow moving near Athol Oaklands Road. The N1 southbound in Randburg is queuing towards Malibongwe Drive exit. Kwacha Road in Pretoria has a crash at Broad Street. In Germiston, the M2 eastbound queuing towards Refinery Road, and the N3 southbound queuing towards Geldnys Interchange. In KZN, the N3 westbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The M7 westbound queuing towards Belleville Road exit. The N3 westbound has a crash reported before the M13 Paradise Valley Interchange. The N3 westbound queuing towards Cliffdale, and the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle after the M41 Gateway exit. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound is slow moving towards the R300 highway. The M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit. The N1 inbound is slow moving towards Kuburg Interchange, and Voortrekker Road outbound in Maitland has a truck fire incident reported at Beach Road, causing heavy traffic in the area. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, to me, we had a fabulous derby, Soweto derby, Orlando Pirates Chiefs, which Pirates won 1-0, just by the way, right? And great crowd and fabulous pictures. And now the conversations about people who had tickets who were not allowed or unable to enter the stadium that's with valid tickets.
Absolutely.
What's the story? Tell me.
Well, Stadium Management SA CEO Bertie Grobler says that more needs to be done to combat the high number of fake tickets sold outside the stadium. Now, there were numerous challenges at FNB Stadium this weekend, as you were saying, Ashraf, as 90,000 spectators were anticipated, but more showed up with fake tickets. And Grobler says that they're holding emergency meetings with all the stakeholders tomorrow to find out what went wrong, and we're going to try and reach out to him so that we can find out how that meeting went. But what caught my eye was seeing how many people were complaining on Twitter. I saw one lady tagging the Minister of Sports, Gayton McKenzie, and she was saying, listen, I bought a ticket, I get to the stadium, I'm told you can't go in because the stadium is filled to capacity. And then the minister, in response, he says he was part of a meeting where they decided to close the gates because the stadium reached full capacity and they feared a stampede. And my next question was, doesn't every ticket have some sort of seat allocation?
Clearly not.
Also, how are we having the same problem year in, year out? And at an FNB stadium. But also, another question, this is the last one. Just recently, there was a concert at FNB Stadium. How did that go smoothly? Why is it a problem when it comes to football?
Well, it's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Well, I mean, so two parts of it. One is, you see, people can sell fake tickets outside, false ones. But that ticket should not be able to be scanned. So when that person gets to the turnstile, it would not ring. They would not be able to get in.
Yeah.
So if not, then what's your system, right? Number one. And I'd love to know whether people actually had scanned tickets or with barcodes, or is that something only some other sports do, number one, right? Number two, I also saw the reports of people who were in the stadium, and let's just call it category 1 tickets, right? And they were sold, and they were with a seat number. It's like, sorry, you know what? It's full.
Taken.
Go for category 5 now. Just go and sit right on top. Now, I mentioned this before, actually, a long time ago, to say, and I'm going back a long time ago, 1996 African Cup of Nations finals, Bafana versus Tunisia. That stadium of 80,000, the old soccer city, they had about 120,000 people in the stadium. People were all seated on the steps, right? They allowed that. Older people, I saw it, were buying, they were already in the stadium, then they had to re-buy seats to sit on seats from, say, you, because you got in there and you're suddenly sitting on their seats. It was the only way. And that problem has not changed in South African football, and it's exclusive to football. So when you wonder why we have problems in our soccer, that's a major problem. So clearly it has not changed.
It has not changed, but from my understanding, Grobler is saying that they want to do away with the till slip tickets. So the tickets that you can buy to the game from like a ShopRite, because it's very easy to try and make fake tickets out of those.
Okay, replace it with what?
Yeah, I'm assuming have a centralized one I'm going to make an example, CompuTicket, and buy tickets from there. But we'll hear from him. He was just saying he feels like that is why there's a lot of fake tickets. And I was just talking to our producer earlier on, Keys, and he was saying that before he went in the stadium, there were two chaps that tried to go in with fake tickets, and the security guard was like, no, this is not allowed. And they were very guilty. They just turned around. They didn't even try to fight.
But what I'm saying, how did they know? How did the security guard know it's a fake ticket? You know, did it not scan?
They did scan it. It didn't scan.
Because that's the way it has to be. So how come others actually then get in, right? So if it doesn't scan, that's great. But clearly the situation is not foolproof if the security guards allegedly are allowing unscanned tickets. It's like, okay, go in. I mean, I've seen that. We've all seen that. It's like, give me my $50, you can go in. I'm not saying it happened today, but clearly something had to have happened for fake ticket holders to actually get into the stadium. Original guys were on the outside.
Well, we'll definitely try to hear from Bertie Grobler tomorrow, especially just after that emergency meeting happening. And I mean, when we hear about stories like a sold-out affair, it's coming up this weekend.
Sundowns against
Sundowns
Pirates
and Orlando
again.
Pirates. Is it a blessing? Is it a curse? We'll just have to wait and see. But elsewhere, Marcus Rashford says that Aston Villa's constant ambition attracted him to the club after he arrived from Manchester United on a loan deal until the end of the season. The 27-year-old has not played for United since mid-December after falling out of favour with manager Ruben Amorim. And Villa reportedly paid an option to buy the forward for around $49 million. And then finally, captain of South African under-23 wheelchair basketball team Petros Live says that qualifying for the upcoming World Champs will definitely be a dream come true. The defending champions will be going into battle in the 2025 IWBF under-23 Men's Africa Championship qualifiers against formidable teams like Libya, DR Congo, Kenya and Liberia.
Qualifying as a team will be a great thing for us, but also a dream come true for the team. But to get there, we need to put the work in, stay disciplined, listen to the coaches, then we'll see from there on.
On that note, it is a wrap from my side. I'll have more on other sports tomorrow and hopefully an update with regards to this ticketing chaos.
And I'll tell you what, whereas Donald Trump is the big story that drives the national pulse today, if you were at FNB Stadium or Soccer City and you didn't get in, or you were in and you didn't get what you expected and you were freaked out about it, please let us know, because we need to know that. It can't continue, because that damages all aspects of it. Damages the national brand of South Africa, but also damages category specific, in this case football or soccer. It should not be.
Absolutely.
This summer, SABC brings us together anytime, anywhere. Catch all the drama, entertainment, and sport on SABC TV. Turn up the volume with your favorite hits and shows on SABC Radio. Stream wherever you are with SABC Plus and join the fun at unmissable SABC events near you. From breaking news to moments that move us, SABC is your companion for every summer memory. Celebrate a summer of togetherness with SABC, your home for connection, entertainment, and inspiration.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
I'm looking at a WhatsApp from Jimmy Moyaha, and the WhatsApp says, I'm back! And it's like got a B and like 10 A's and the CK at the end. Okay, Jimmy, you're back. Well done. Go for it.
Good
You're gonna
afternoon, Ashraf.
well, you've been away for a whole week, and let's start with what's moving markets then.
Yeah, I take a bit of a break for 1 week and I come back to things like load shedding is back and not back and chaos. Donald Trump is saying things. But we are back. We're going to be taking a look at a couple of things, including that Trump conversation. I'm going to be speaking to Professor of Economics, Finance and Strategy at the Gordon Institute for Business Sciences, Professor Adrian Seville, around the Trump conversation, because it is a serious conversation. We can't have heads of states just opening up their Truth Socials and other social platforms and just saying what it is that they feel like saying, and the Rand reacting to that today. There was a lot of reaction. I mean, going into the weekend, for a bit of context, ahead of this particular post by Donald Trump and some of the other news that we got out, so the Rand was closer to 1850 when you and I caught up on Friday. Today we touched 19 Rand in the early hours of the morning, so clearly the markets have been reacting to the news and the developments that have been happening around the world, and we're going to continue to see how that could potentially play out. We're also going to be taking a look at the mining indaba that kicked off today. You would have obviously spoken around some of the comments by the Minister of the Department of Mineral Resources and some of the objectives of the mining indaba. We're going to look at that and try and figure out where we are this time around. And then we've got a conversation with the particular consortium that put in the bid for Barloworld. That 23 billion Rand bid looks to be going ahead. The board has given its approval for that. We've got a conversation with the consortium that is intending to delist Barloworld. We're going to see what their plans are there, what we could potentially be in for from a headwind point of view. And then we're going to have a conversation as part of our tech feature that we do on a Mondays now. We're going to be taking a look at the latest developments from Apple. They've introduced a new innovation into their AirPods that now allows their AirPods to potentially help hearing impaired individuals. So that's going to be something to look out for. And then we're going to wrap up the show with our personal finance. We're going to be taking a look at good debt versus bad debt, what's the difference, and how to navigate that conversation. Before we get to that, though, the markets have also kind of been a bit of a weird start to the month. This is the first trading day of the month of February. And when we look at the performance of the markets, it's a sea of red across the board. Asian markets all in the red with the exception of Shanghai. That was up about 7 basis points, so basically flat, but closer to the red. I suppose we're happy that it did finish in the green. The ASX in Sydney 1.8% in the red. The Nikkei in Tokyo 2.6% in the red. European markets not much better there. The CAC 40 in France 1.7% in the red. The DAX in Germany 1.95% in the red, or 1.94% depending on which index you're looking at. The FTSE in London 1.5% in the red. Our own local markets half a percent in the red was the all share. So the top 40 was down 0.42%. This was because the industrials were down 2/3%, financials were down a full percent, and the resources counters, the only saving grace there, gaining about 0.86%. At some point our local index was down more than 1.4% in the early start to the morning trade. So looks like a bit of a recovery throughout the day, but still some serious concerns around what might be driving some of those factors. US markets as well, also all in the red. Nasdaq 2.4% down, S&P 1.6% down. Those are big numbers for those international markets, especially in the US. If we look at the Rand, 18.75 is what $1 will cost you at the moment. €1 will cost you 19 Rand 35, and £1 will cost you 23 Rand and 29 cents. Anyone looking to move to Australia, $1 Australian, 11 Rand and 60 cents. Anyone looking at Bitcoin, we're back below 100,000. We're at $98,000 a Bitcoin there. We're at $2,600 odd for an Ethereum coin. Price of Bitcoin, interestingly enough, still at 1.8 million despite coming lower, and that's because of the weaker Rand. And if we look at commodities before we go, gold price still marching on, $2,816 a fine ounce. Brent crude back at $75.88 a barrel. Platinum, palladium above $1,000 an ounce at 1,032 odd. Platinum at $1,000 an ounce. Both of those commodities coming off by 3% from when we looked at them last, and coming off of the numbers that we looked at on Friday as well. The price of silver also coming off quite a bit there. So some of the commodities doing better, some of them not doing so well. We're going to unpack all of these when we come back a little later on. But for now, Ashraf, back to you.
Okay, perfect. You enjoy your show from 6 to 7, and as we said, Jimmy Moya is back. That's your words, not mine. Thank you. Looking forward to that show, particularly that chat with Adrian Savile. Certainly I enjoy listening to Adrian whenever he does talk on many platforms. Absolutely. Right, what it means now is it's time for your calls. We couldn't do them earlier because we had to fit in some guests like Herman Mashaba and a whole lot of others, but you clearly have opinions on some of the biggest issues, and there's no question about it. There's very little outside of the issues of Donald Trump, but I'll leave it to you, whatever it is you want to talk about. Now, these are the options: 086 000 2032 to call in. You can WhatsApp, text or voice note 0614 104 107, and then you can tweet. Tag SAFM Radio, tag me, Ashraf Garda, spelled ASHRAF, Ashraf, and then GARDA, and then use the hashtag The National Pulse. Many people have done that. We'll certainly look at that. Let's get to your calls.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Mom, yeah, look, a golden pencil.
Wow, where'd you get that?
My Buco pencil case. I could win a bike and vouchers, and my school gets 20,000 rand.
That's so cool. The Buco Golden Pencil Initiative. 9 lucky learners will find a golden pencil in their Buco pencil cases, winning big prizes and school refurbishments. Buco, building communities one golden moment at a time. Begin with Buco.
Buco. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, I'll get to the voice notes and your text in just a moment, but let's get your calls first. Butle and Alex, go for it, Butle. Hi.
Hi. I'd like to comment on the Trump issue.
Just go ahead. You're live on the air. Go for it.
By the way, I'm the lady who spoke during lunchtime when we had the Youth League Economic Freedom March. And we as the Youth League feel that Ramaphosa, by implementing the Expropriation Act, he has fulfilled some of the things that we'd like to implement. We talk about reindustrialization. How do we plan on reindustrializing if we don't have the land? Why do people have a problem with the state owning the land? This is the opportunity we have as a country, the GNU, having our Minister of Agriculture with his expertise and his friends. This is when they show us how they are going to make sure that there is no corruption and the land is state-owned and distributed properly. They said they want to show us the lead, so this is the time where they're going to show us they're leading the portfolio without corruption.
Okay, well, you're very confident about that, so thank you for that point made and noted. Butler, thanks for that. In Alex Savage, I've got the name right, in Attridgeville, sorry. Right, you want to talk about Kali Kriel? Go for it.
Yes, actually two things for me. About Ramaphosa, he should probably ignore Donald Trump, but he must go get a lesson from him. Because Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, he delivers his promises to his constituency. Whether it's bad, whether he wants to build a wall, he must be a bigger force than him to stop it. That's one thing I like about him. He's decisive, whether you like it or you don't, whether you're for it or not. So I think Ramaphosa can go get tips from that and deliver us the bullet train he promised many years back. However, on the second point, this guy, AfriForum guy and Donald Trump, they are saying something very important. They are saying the South African government, whatever the bill is, seeks to expropriate land or grab land from somebody and give it to somebody. So they are acknowledging that the land is in the hands of the white people and blacks have got nothing. So I think they must come up with a solution. What do they want us to do now? Because undoubtedly, that's what that guy was saying. And everybody's saying that this bill seeks to take land from a certain particular group and give it to another particular group. That on its own says everybody is aware that land is not equally distributed. So they must actually tell us now, okay, maybe we
but let me move. I need to move on. I mean, I hear that. I think the overall conversation about the land we can't have today because we've done it before and there's just not enough time for now, right? I'm more interested in just the responses from the Trump story. But here's the one thing. When you say we must have that, should Trump be part of that conversation as well? Savage? Oh, I think Savage is good. I want to know whether you said we must have the conversation. Does it include AfriForum as well as Donald Trump as part of the conversation, or is it the government, the leadership at the moment of the country as it stands, and that's what they're doing with civil society input? And maybe then you can say, well, that's why we have AfriForum. Okay, Gift in the Eastern Cape. Go for it. What's your point, Gift?
Look, Ashraf, I was just laughing because they were admirers of Donald Trump in South Africa, and I'm sure they are licking with the wounds that their God has just issued that kind of a statement about South Africa. But
Can I laugh too? I mean, I agree with you. There's not a day. There's not a day in the last few weeks we've had people not calling in on this show specifically and saying, hey, I really admire Donald Trump. And I wish we had a president like him. That means they're judging him on one thing when he does 50 things. And how do you... There's one aspect you might find good, but what about the other 49?
That's why I was raising that point, Ashraf, because to me, to us South Africans, that and this is quite important, that our government has been held ransom by white landowners and many political parties whose narrow vision for this country still bled on racial prejudice and economic self-interest, and AfriForum is part of those. And I think the opposition to this concept of expropriation, Ashraf, even if it's done within the ambit of the law, proves that current landowners would prefer that land reform and restitution be deferred indefinitely. And I think this is a critical time in South Africa, because this country remains one of the world's most unequal nations, and we have not managed collectively as a nation to overcome the legacies of colonialism and apartheid in many aspects.
Well, I think you're right, and therefore, because I need to move on now. The conversation we had with Janine Hills earlier on is very important, and you're just reminding me. It does present South Africa with a unique opportunity now to effectively market what they're trying to do around redress to a global audience. They don't have to pay for it. It will come because every global audience will chase them. That's the nature.
And I want to point Ashraf, before I go off, land ownership remains overwhelmingly skewed towards the white man. Hence, Trump is speaking that kind of a language, and we'll never tolerate that.
Got that. Gift in the Eastern Cape. Anonymous Anonymous. Anonymous, go for it.
Yes, how are you, Ashraf?
I'm good indeed. Thank you. What's your point?
He's speaking with Anonymous here.
Yeah.
Look, I'm just looking at the Donald Trump's tweet now when he tweeted about that land that has been taken away from people.
Yeah.
Look, as much as people are exposing things to the countries out there, it questions the ruling party's integrity. For an example, if you look at how the country is now, potholes all over the place, if things are slowly exposed, we'll end up losing more and more. For instance, now there's load shedding and whatnot. So I think now it's time for South Africa to wake up and switch its house and get its house in order. Because we cannot have people from out there judging how we live in our country, how we're exploiting others in terms of land or whatever the cases that are there.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, we are talking about Donald Trump, and I think to be fair, if anybody is going to shoot from the hip, it's Donald Trump. I mean, in the last few days, he's made a very clear intent about Greenland. He's changed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. He's been upfront about the Panama Canal rather. He's spoken about Palestinians going to Egypt and Jordan, and then even saying they will take them because we've done deals, like we've done business with them, like almost saying, you know what, they can't say no to us. So this is the same person. That is why those that said like he's the savior of the world. I mean, honestly, you got to be careful. Anonymous, thanks for that. Let's get Eunice from Joburg. Eunice, hi.
Hi there. Look, Donald Trump's utterances stank of hypocrisy. Like this Land Act here, I mean the Expropriation Act here, went through a legislative process where he signs off executive orders unilaterally, like what he does there in America. Now, like you said, a week ago, he asked for 1.5 million Palestinians to be relocated to Jordan and Egypt from the land of their birth. You know, that smacks of hypocrisy. That's one. Number two, as we talk, he's now hosting Benjamin Netanyahu, his bosom buddy, what are they doing in the West Bank, the settlers and the soldiers? Confiscating land of indigenous Palestinians. So, it smacks of hypocrisy. Donald Trump is dangerous for this world, and the people better see it.
Well, point made. Tokozani in Fosler list, I think it is. Yeah, Tokozani, go for it. What's your point?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf,
Let's start by saying Donald Trump is a good president. Nonetheless, he sometimes speaks before he is verified. This he has further indicated that he is still going to wait for the investigations to be completed by his team, meaning that upon getting the advice, he will make up his mind and act accordingly. So I think he must be given that opportunity.
No, but I'll tell you why I disagree with you, because he actually made up his mind in his tweet already. His tweet already condemned South Africa. Then he said, we'll withdraw funding until we'll look into it again. But the first tweet didn't say, I heard about this, I'm going to investigate it. His first tweet line condemned us.
He's that kind of a man who acts swiftly on matters before verifying the facts.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean he's right.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean he's right.
It would be nice if there could be a reason to withdraw funding from South Africa. It would be legitimate to do so due to corruption. I do not think it's fair for any taxpayer to be supporting the South African government based on the level of corruption we have in the
All right, I got that. That's an interesting one about corruption. Another whole conversation for another time. Thank you for that, Thokozani. Right, I'm going to go through as many WhatsApp comments as I can very quickly. Keep them to 30 seconds. That really helps.
I fully agree with him. It's time these people are charged with treason, because this is treasonous. There's no other way.
Treason, right?
Ashraf, good afternoon. In the interest of social harmony, I honestly believe guys like Kali Kriel should be ignored. Honestly, I'm not too sure why do you have to interview people like him. Thanks.
Interesting. Many have said, why give them airtime? I wonder what you think about that.
Please ask Kali Kriel which land has been confiscated. Name one person, whether black or white, that has lost land, or his land or her land has been confiscated. Name that person.
Actually, Kali Kriel confirmed with me on air, listen to the podcast, he said no land has been confiscated. He did concede that.
Hi, Ashraf. Now it looks like Forum didn't consider the consequences when they were lodging this complaint to Donald Trump. Look at how they're behaving now. They don't even know what to do.
Hey, Ashraf. Trump spoke once, but the South African media has been pumping this story, I think it's 1,000 times, if not more, because there's a certain narrative that SABC and the rest of the media is trying to push. When we have issues in this country that we don't understand, we always get an opinion from Al Jazeera, from CNN, from BBC. So this is an assignment from me to you. You go to CNN and explain this. Have an opinion. They must call you as a guest, and you must please assist us and explain this to the community out there. Thanks, Sibongi.
Can I tell you what, Sibongi? I'm pretty sure, it's not me, I'd be very happy to speak on that platform if I'm invited, but I can tell you now, I'll be very surprised if South African analysts are not being given airtime right now around the world. In fact, on various platforms, they must be.
Hi, Ashraf. Thanks for the show. I'll keep this 30 seconds. I like how Trudeau, the Canadian president, responded to stay Canada strong, stay South African strong. There's no reason for Trump or the United States to get involved in our internal politics. We are what we are. We take the good with the bad in how we operate, but we are South African, and I'm proud of that, and I don't need any other country telling us what to do or how to do it.
Okay, and the last one I can play.
Afternoon, Ashraf. No, Donald Trump has done nothing wrong, guys. Donald Trump is just touching spineless leaders in Africa. I can tell you now, Traore then Burkina Faso is not worried about what Donald Trump is doing, because he bargains with what he has in his country. So because we cannot bargain, Donald Trump is just saying, guys, bargain with what you have. I bargain what I have. What do you respond? What's the response? Simple. Now beggars are crying left, right, and center. Thank you, Vian and Orange Farm.
Okay, interesting one from Orange Farm. You think this is like a bargaining deal? Well, look, the one thing that's come out of this, and I agree with this, is that whether it's the USA, whether it's even China or India or Russia or UK, name all the countries in the world, right? Our dependence on other countries with regard to funding is so lopsided that it is problematic. And we have to now get to a situation where, I've said this before, it's not about buying local. We need to build local and sell global. We need to make sure that we are so good at what we produce and deliver that the countries of the world are begging for our services and our products, not the other way around. Think about that. This is the National Pulse. Great that you've been a part of it for the last 3 hours. Listen to all the podcasts. Go to it, safm.coza. I'll try and post some of them on the X platform as well. But listen to the podcast. Share it amongst your friends as well. It's 6 o'clock. Here's Greg Host with the news.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Joburg load reduction is suspended and SA concerned over Trump comments. Good evening. City of Johannesburg's power utility City Power says it has suspended load reduction indefinitely. It says this follows improvements in the functioning of the system